Hello.
Someone's at the door. It's a minute I need a shower.
Got it. Thanks.
All right, we'll wait for the councilman. We have 2 minutes. I think it's 10 minutes.
Yes, yeah.
Right. And I think other Denise, she's on the. I'm so glad it's Friday. I really am.
It was a long week on Tuesday. I was like, okay, it's Tuesday. Got it.
Didn't come from Saturday.
Tomorrow.
Which I'm very excited to have Monday
Right.
next week. I will report back. She seems really happy. She's so sad, actually. Marie, do you want to wait? Director, a little bit, a couple minutes? Or get
Just one more minute.
Okay.
Well, you know, she's coming back.
But after that, it's like something.
Right. Everything is going through your head.
Councilman, how are you?
That's
Good morning.
the-
All right, good morning, everyone. We have some folks in the room, folks online. Gonna get started. First, we will call the roll after the director reads the opening to the meeting. Good morning.
Morning, everybody. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the city planning department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusals from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing that chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. All users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. We have also received emails from those who provided written comments on a particular matter. Proper channels for comments are listed below. Communication with members of the body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by city planning staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting.
All right, Michael, call the roll, please.
Anthony,
Present.
Downing,
Present.
Luther,
Present.
Curry,
Present.
McBride Scott,
Hold on, she's on. She waved.
Sargent,
Present.
Slight,
Present.
and Chairman.
Thank you. So want to welcome new commission member, Andrew Sargent. So welcome. Do you maybe have the director say a few words? And thank you. This is the first time, and we had one meeting where we've had a full 7-member commission. So this is our second one in probably 10 years. So very excited about that, and so excited to have you. And maybe have the director say a few words, and maybe if you would like to just.
I'll do a brief intro and then see if you want to add anything. So, Andrew Sargent has been nominated and confirmed to the commission this month. And he currently serves as the Director of Open Space and Planning for the Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. His background is in landscape design and landscape architecture. So we're really pleased to have a landscape perspective on the commission as it relates to public realm, which is really important to the mayor's office and the mayor himself, seeing the interaction of the public and private realm. Some significant pieces of background: you're part of the Black Landscape Architects Network, you're an Enterprise Rose Fellow, and you're a lecturer for various colleges and universities, including Harvard and other places. So, want to say anything else?
I think the director kind of touched it all, but I have a background of landscape design experience and have a practice for about 6 years and in the nonprofit space for the last 3 years in Cleveland, working with the CDC on various projects, including master plan, public use improvements, and also working with the city closely on a large number of cities.
Thank you. If we go fast, feel free to ask questions, or if you need some clarification as you get kind of going on the commission about motions or anything, or even policies we might have, just really feel comfortable asking, and we'll take the time to explain as we go. As I've learned, being on this commission a long time, this is one of the places where you learn by doing and over time. There's no real textbook for the commission, so welcome.
Thank you.
All right, first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the July 7th meeting. They are here. I took a look at them. They're down there, but we'll need a motion on those.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We're okay. And I think Andrew's going to abstain from this one too. And so actually August wasn't here as well. So call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Luther,
Abstain.
Curry,
Yes.
McBride Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Abstain.
Slight,
Present. No, 10. Yes.
You were
present, yes.
All right, so motion carries. First item is a lot split and consolidation. This is permanent parcel number 004-17-082 and -081. This is an item that we tabled on the last meeting, which was July 7th. We're going to hear it today. So we'll ask that someone make a motion to remove this one from the table.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to remove this one from the table.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McBride Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. So we will hear this item. This is at 2444 and 2450 Professor Avenue. Wesley, are you here to present this, or online? Wesley Harper?
I am. Good morning, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
good morning. Go ahead.
Thank you. As mentioned, this was here 2 weeks ago to go over the site plan and the proposed split. Here we have the existing context. So we have these two houses on the left. These lots are quite deep in this portion of Tremont. So you can see here that the existing conditions are two existing buildings facing Professor, and then a parking lot behind the newer structure, which is the 2450. and then the rest of the lot is vacant. So what we're proposing to do is construct two unit apartment buildings, essentially, in the rear portion of this lot, and then reconfigure the parking to basically have a 1-to-1 parking ratio to all of the units, the new and the existing, on this site. And so I spoke with Shannon Leonard this week to go over the kind of the process for getting this to be eventually approved by the building department. We will be putting together legal easement language that covers access and maintenance over the years. And so we're proposing essentially turning 2 parcels into 4 parcels. Each parcel has its own building on it. So that was really what was in question the last time. If I'm mistaken in that, feel free to let me know. But we have been through the Board of Zoning Appeals for this issue. We've been through the neighborhood, and I believe Donna Gregonis may be on the call to speak from that perspective. If not, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So if we do have a motion, first I'll ask if there are questions. We would need that motion to include a condition that staff would, before you sign off on it, you'd see those documents.
Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner, Zoning and Technology. So part of the variance request, part of the condition to approve those variances is that they submit an easement agreement and have an approved easement for the parking, snow removal, trash, indefinitely with the variances. So they're going with that.
I also want to read into the record that Donna did send a letter to the planning commission via me. This was reviewed by Fremont, and they do support private.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of this motion at 2444 and 2450 Professor Avenue, lot consolidation, with the caveat that the developer submitted an easement agreement in perpetuity for parking and trash and snow removal.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
yes,
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is also a lot split, permanent parcel number 003-32-067. This is at 2907 J Avenue. Anthony Casilla, are you here to speak to this one? Or online? As we wait to see if he is, clarify, would we postpone versus table? Okay.
We can table it if we think so.
But even if we, should we go ahead? Okay. And postpone? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just skipping over right now.
Okay. Will you remind me if I forget? Thank you. 002-31-172. This is also a lot split at 1968 West 54th Street. Is Cody Miller here for this one?
Here. Good morning.
All right. We have your slides here, so.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead to the first slide. So this is a lot split for, again, 1968 West 54th Street. Currently, the lot is addressed as 5408 Ithaca Court. So this is a corner parcel. We are proposing to construct a new home shown on the left. That's just a screenshot of our plans. as well as renovate the existing cottage that is on the parcel. The new home received HDRS approval in April. So we are now kind of, finalizing the lot split to be able to essentially remodel the existing home and build a new home at the same time. Go ahead and move on. Let's see. I'm not able to drive the slide, am I?
We're working
Hold
on it.
on one sec.
Okay. So again, existing conditions, you see below that is currently the lot. There used to be a house. I'm not entirely sure when it was torn down, but the foundation is very clearly still there. So there used to be a lot at the corner. The current cottage is condemned by the city of Cleveland. It is not on the tear down list, but it has been condemned for some time. And the current parcel, 002311172, was actually consolidated by the two former parcels in 2020. So the previous owner decided to consolidate these parcels, and we are resplitting them. Not in the exact same location, which should be noted, but these were two parcels before. Go ahead. The site, it's in the Far West Design Region, just north of Lorraine Avenue and just south of Bridge Avenue on West 54th. The zoning is currently two-family with, I believe, a 35-foot height limit, which we are abiding by on the new house. Again, this is just showing, where exactly we're at here. It's that small little house on Ithaca plus the corner lots. And then some existing condition views. Obviously, photo 1 is looking at the parcel from 54th. You can see the cottage in the back. View number 2 is looking north on 54th. There's been some considerable amount of new construction here on this street, which is good to see. And hopefully we can add something nice to that. Go ahead on. Again, view 3 is looking south on West 54th, and the view there on Ithaca is actually looking, that's a close-up of the current cottage that we plan to renovate. Again, just some more views. That is on Ithaca looking east. Again, at the cottage. The cottage is multicolored right now, with a little bit of work needing done. And then finally, just a larger photo on 54th. This is the proposed survey with the lot split, and this is actually submitted with the city at the moment. I apologize, it's tough to obviously get this on a presentation for everyone to see exactly the dimensions of the lot, but let's see if we can. Okay, there we go. That's easier. Thank you. So this is the site plan. The existing cottage will be remodeled. It's going to be a 2-bed, 2-bath home. It will not have a garage. It will have a parking pad. The garage seemed like it'd be a little too awkward if we tried to fit it on. It would just look weird. So we decided to leave a parking pad. Again, remodeling the existing house with the current footprint that it's sitting on, and constructing a 2-story residence at the corner with a side-loaded garage off of Ithaca. Yes, I'm aware we're going to need a zoning appeal for the driveway depth, which I've already been working with Adam Davenport on. But yeah, this is the current site plan for what we're proposing. The single-family dwelling is approximately 2,500 square feet. The existing home is going to be roughly 1,300 square feet. This is the Ithaca Court side, and that is the West 54th side of the new home construction. And then this is the proposed elevations for the cottage. Not really changing much. The only major difference being a kind of a French style balcony. I don't want to say balcony, but like adding a French door on the Ithaca front. you know, to open up a little bit of fresh air to the cottage. And I believe that is all I have.
Thank you very much. Commission members, any questions or comments? I have to say, in my opinion, it's a really nice, nice site plan. Love the care that you've taken with it. Love that this could potentially be an accessory dwelling unit, even though they're going to be separated. Like that you're using Ithaca Court the way you are. Wish we'd see more like this. That's my only comment.
Madam,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
For that particular lot. Is that urban garden still existing,
There's a question if there's an urban garden on this site.
still existing?
It is in fact still there. And I believe in this, if you go back to the zoning, that parcel is actually still zoned as urban. Yep, right there.
Madam Chair, to the applicant, what type of zoning variances are you proposing to seek?
I believe, and I apologize, I should have put that on there. This particular presentation was supposed to go to zoning. They actually sent me to planning commission before zoning. And I believe the zoning variance was for the side, the Ithaca Court side driveway not being, I believe it's 10 feet. And then I believe also the driveway for the remodeled 1.5 story house is not 10 feet from a window. So I believe that's why I'm going to zoning variance. And there may have possibly been, lot size, floor area ratio is the other one.
Yeah.
Yes, so as part of the new process with lot splits where you're subdividing a house a lot that already has an existing house on it is requiring, the chief building official has to go through a zoning review before it comes to planning commission. And so the variances that they need here are, parking within 10 feet of a habitable window. So we're keeping the window for living space. The house to the east will need a rear yard setback, and then the driveway, as we stated, is also not large enough. It's also a front loaded garage technically, but because they're on an alley, they're not being run up as such. And then again, it's the minimum lot size as well as the over a variance for greater than maximum gross floor area, which is 2 variances that we see pretty much at every word.
So Shannon, real quick, so I just need to understand procedurally. The zoning variances will be granted prior to this lot split because if you split the lot, then you have non-conforming sites at that time.
Yes, so to answer your question, so City Planning Commission has the authority to grant substandard lots. In fact, those are the only lot splits that you all see. In this case, because there's an existing house on the other property, it is creating the non-conformities essentially when you do the lot split, but they would have to get the variances for the lot split.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam
Good
Chair,
question.
James, do they have to come back for that approval or once we approve the lot split today?
Once you approve the lot splits, they'll still have to zoning appeals and they would have to be granted the variances through that public process.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
In this case, as the applicant mentioned, it was consolidated in 2020, so it was formerly in this pattern, and now it's being requested to split
Okay.
back into 2 different parcels. It's following the historic substantial grant that was already.
Madam Chair, I move to approve parcel number 00231-172 lot split.
I'll second.
Well, we have a motion and a second, okay? Yeah.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Lukert,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray-Scott,
yes,
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. So we're on to design review, and then we're starting with Near West design review. This is 2023-021, 6 City Glazing, new construction. This is at 311 Train Avenue. Is Rob Strickland here or online?
This is Bob Strickland.
Yep. I need to swear, are you the only one speaking to this matter?
The architect, Bill Doty, is also
Okay.
on.
Okay. So I'm going to swear you both in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Okay. All right, take it away. They have your presentation.
Okay, what's proposed is a 18,750 square foot semi-industrial manufacturing building for the manufacturing of glazing systems and 22 or 3,200 square feet of two-story office space for the company staff and administration. So there's proposed to be 20 employees to 30 employees employed on this site. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the proximity map. The site is located at the corner of Train and West 30th. Next slide. There we go. So this is the can be reduced. This just shows the existing conditions. There's an existing building on the site which will be completely demolished and replaced by the new structure. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the site plan for the new structure, showing the new manufacturing facility. The office element is in the northeast corner, a two-story structure, and then the associated parking, the parking to the west off of Train will be for the employees. And then there's a truck dock entrance and some additional parking off of West 30th. Next slide, please. These are just existing conditions to show context and where the building will be located. So there's not very much at all around this building. Changes from Barber Avenue to the south down to Train. This is the only buildable site at grade First Street. Next slide, please. So these are the site plans for, the floor plans for the new structure, showing the manufacturing space, and then the first floor office. Next slide. This is the second floor plan for the office area. Next slide. And these are elevation drawings. So we've worked very closely with the planning staff. This property had a zoning change from semi-industrial to multifamily in 2018, I think. And so we've already received variances from BZA for the change of use back to semi-industrial. It's also in an urban form overlay. And because of the grade changes on the site and the site configuration, we received a variance for glazing that's not in strict conformance with the urban form overlay and for the building frontage. So we've received both of those variances plus the change of use from the BZA on July 10th. Next slide. This just shows, how the building is sited and the severe grade change to the back of the site. Next slide. And just a colored elevations to show the amount of glazing. City Glazing is a commercial glass and glazing contractor, and so glazing is featured on the building, and the some product samples for the masonry, clear glazing, black frames around the windows, and the pearl gray color of the siding for the metal building.
And the two different types of masonry.
There's a split face and smooth face, ground face masonry in bands.
Okay.
And that's our presentation.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, we have our staff member here to
Okay.
provide additional comments and context. Hi, everybody. My name is Ruby Kama, your West Side City Planner. Yes, this came to design review 3 times. It was approved for final. This project has met with the Chief Zoning Planner Shannon, and Assistant Director Fields, and my City Planner Manager Davenport. And we configured this to just fit the UFO a little bit more. Design review, after seeing it revised, considered it a positive. They did request seeing a landscape and lighting plan as well. Other than that, it was approved for the minor. And for the record, the slide says committee recommendation conceptual approval. It should actually be final approval. Yeah. So that's a typo on our end.
Okay. What's your members?
Hi, Bill. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still out there. There's some old clients that still hire me, so I'm happy.
Just for clarification for me, as someone makes a motion, does our motion need to include the submission to staff of the landscape plan, or was that already submitted? Okay, so we can have you guys check that box.
Madam Chair, another clarification. I guess under the conditions, I don't exactly understand what he's saying. It says approval of use variance, semicolon, it is recommended that the project be code compliant, which I mean, that's not under our purview, obviously.
I also
So this property is actually was zoned back in 2017, multifamily with an urban form overlay, because the neighborhood at the time wanted to clean up what was going on Train Avenue with the illegal dumping.
Okay.
And they really didn't want to see anything back there but residential. We put the urban form overlay there because the site, because of the grade change, without putting type of urban form overlay or some type of minimum setback, it wouldn't be buildable for that, for residential, if it was residential. But they did, because of bringing Six City glazing to the city from the suburbs, the city as well as the CDC and the council person felt that this was a good use here, because it is pretty much a dead end there on Train to the railroad tracks. And so we did try to bring them as close as possible with that grade change, with understanding the use. It's not residential, it is more of a light industrial type of use. How to make that as code compliant to the urban form overlay. So how to be walkable, how to make sure that it's pedestrian friendly in terms of the glazing, so that when residential north of it is built, if people want to walk to work or walk in that area, they feel safe to do so. We can still continue to change that narrative from illegal dumping to a developable site. And so they did meet that as closely as possible, and they did get approved for that use variance.
I did want to comment, first of all, it's funny that they had to work on glazing for a company that does glazing. But then, just a joke. And then secondly, this is an outdated, committee recommendation from a prior motion form, so through the chair, it's.
Okay, got it.
Madam Chair, I have one comment. If we can go to the proposed site plan, I'm just a bit concerned with the proposed greening. See significant overlap of the kind of steep contours both on the parking lot and even the right parking lot. Just at glance, just doesn't seem ADA accessible. Could the applicant speak to the confidence that I mean, even the structure, it seems like it's overlapping some significant grades right in the center.
Yeah, did you hear the question, Bob? It was about the grading and ADA accessibility to the lot and how that you're, can you speak to the kind of confidence around the grading and the site.
Yes, you can see that we obviously tried to maximize the buildable area and utilization of the site. And so ADA accessibility will be from that employee parking lot. There's an employee entrance off of that parking lot. And so it's not labeled here, but there'll be a handicap accessible space provided in that employee lot. And obviously the parking lot configuration is meant to maximize available parking, and we will have to just adjust the grades of that hill to the south to accommodate that parking lot configuration. So there may be some minor retaining walls that are required, but we'll try to adjust the grading limit the adjustment to the grading as much as possible to accommodate the parking and building configuration.
One thing we also did to accommodate the comments from design review and planning was to eliminate 2 handicap spaces out in that planted lawn out front, but continue to have the sidewalk off of West 30th Street be ADA compliant into the first floor of the office area also. So someone could be dropped off at that sidewalk, which hits West 30th Street to get access to the offices, but then the parking would have to be around the other parking lot areas. So we made that accommodation on behest of the planning staff and also architecture review board to make this more walkable or friendly, and rather having parking in front of the building right there.
I would just say, when it goes to planning, can they ask for a grading plan with the landscape plan submission that confirms that the parking lots will be ADA accessible?
Yeah, you can add that to the motion if you would like. So maybe you can make it a first motion.
A motion to add a.
Well, to first to approve, you motion to approve with the conditions. Yeah.
A motion to approve the submission, the plan, with the caveat that the client for the submission include a landscape plan with grading plan that ensures that there's any accessibility in the grant plan.
Second.
Just to clarify, especially for Michael Bozak, so the motion is to approve final approval, but with the condition, and this can go to staff that to staff to ensure the grading plan works for ADA accessibility in the lot. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, and a lighting. If I could get it.
Say it again.
Lighting.
Oh, and a lighting plan. Well, would you be willing to add and a lighting plan?
And a lighting plan.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. We have a comment. I normally wouldn't.
If they expect up to 30 employees and they only have 21 spaces, and only one of them is ADA, why do they think that just one handicap space is acceptable?
It's a code issue, so they have to meet the code requirement of number of spaces and accessibility. So this is parking is required. I'm going to talk Shannon about how it's calculated.
Yeah, so Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner, Zoning and Technology. So the parking here, they do meet the parking requirements. 30 employees is at the busiest time of day. So that doesn't necessarily mean that there'll always be 30 employees there at any given time. They do not need a parking variance as it relates to parking for new construction. 65% is required of the total that was in our chapter 349 for this use. So they actually are overparked in terms of that as well. But they are also located near transit stations. And so there's hope that the people that will be working at this location are from the neighborhood. And so they can walk to this establishment, or they can take one of a different form of mobility instead of cars.
No, my question was only why we only one in the parking space.
Yeah, so that's what's required by the state of Ohio in terms of handicap parking. So no new establishments can be built in the city without meeting the state and federal requirements for handicap accessibility. And that is determined by either the state or federal government. That's not determined by the city.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with, and you got it with the adding the lighting plan. Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
yes,
Sergeant,
Yes.
Spud, yes.
Motion carries. Oh, we have a Euclid corridor design review case.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you. And thanks for bringing some jobs in the city. Really appreciate it.
Very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. 2023-011, this is the company, Inc. This is new construction. This is seeking schematic design approval. Is that correct? And this is at 4420 Payne Avenue. Leon Sampit, and anybody else? Where Leon? Here, Leon. Nick and Leon. I'm going to swear you both in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, take it away. Do you want to start? Leon,
Yeah.
you're going first.
Yes, so Leon Sampat, LS Architects, 22082 Lawrence Road, Fairview Park, Ohio. We're here representing the company, proposing a structure at 4420 Payne Avenue. As you see, Nick Zod is the owner. He's actually in the room there with you guys. They purchased the property approximately 2 years ago. They've been in the neighborhood now for about 40 years. Their current facility is across the street. They've outgrown it. They need more warehouse space. Employee-wise, there's only 3 of them in the warehouse, but they do need more capacity for storage. So they knew that a couple of years ago, so they looked at property. They found this. We've now proposed a 2-story structure. The first floor is approximately 19,000 square feet. The second floor is approximately 3,600 square feet. The lot's about 3/4 acre. We did present at the design review, and we've revised the drawings based on their comments. They had a couple where we had to add additional, they proposed some additional landscaping, which we added. They proposed some design. They wanted little design elements added to the project. So if you could go to the next slide. This is the first floor. So we have office space, conference room, break room, restrooms, and then the majority of the building is storage. We do have a loading dock at the bottom left corner. Second floor is basically for future use. It's actually more for their personal use, but that is included in the proposed. Next slide. These are the proposed elevations. Our original design just had it was a little bit more simplistic. This design, we added a 2-tone masonry. Actually, if you go to the next slide, there's a rendering. So this is the proposed entrance. After design review, they suggested we add some additional windows. The owners didn't want too many windows on the first floor. They've had some issues with broken windows. So at this point, we've added some on the second floor. We added some additional materials such as the metal steel rib siding at the top to kind of break up the structure. And then we have the 2-tone split face block. And then I'd like to have Mr. Zod kind of explain their business. So if he could go ahead and give you a little more insight on what they do.
Like Leon said, we are a family-owned business. My dad just started in 1979. We're currently at 41st and Payne. We've been there since 1983. We've just been looking for years for lots or buildings to build just to do all our needs. I work with 2 other departments there. We do commercial flooring. We're a small business at Cleveland Small Business Enterprise. We do a lot of work in the city of Cleveland. So we're hoping with this we can hire some more people like warehouse and drivers because we only have 1 right now. But that would be a pretty nice addition to the neighborhood. If you go up and down Payne Avenue, there's a lot of empty lots and condemned buildings and things like that. So it spruces it up a little bit too.
There's
Yes. I would like to read into the record 2 letters that were received regarding this. Before I do that, I do want to comment that the use does fit the zoning, and Shannon's available to answer any zoning questions if needed. We did receive an outreach from Councilman House. He also sent it to the commission, as well as from a neighboring property owner, or I should say a neighbor in the neighborhood, does own property. Their concern is with the town located next door and the impact of the construction operations. And so the request comes from the council member, while it's not necessarily a part of a requirement of a process for them to have a discussion about it. And so her request to the commission is to have them talk with Midtown prior to approval.
We're actually meeting with Karis from Midtown and top of their office today at 1 o'clock. So maybe any concerns or hours, and we're not there on weekends and we're not there tonight, so don't worry about it. I don't even think they're open yet too. They're still working on their building renovations.
Can you just speak to this, any zoning requirements, any variance requirements that you know of? We know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of the zoning issues here, Matt. I don't think there's any zoning variance needs for this specific property owner.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to table this item until our next meeting, so that the conversation can be had with Midtown and a further discussion with the council.
I second.
Madam Chair, to Diane, would it be best to postpone it so we don't have to untable it? I vote.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Oh, no.
Okay, I will revise my motion. I would like to postpone this item until our next meeting in 2 weeks, so that a discussion can be had with Midtown and with the councilwoman if appropriate.
Second. Oh, it was already a second. It was.
Can I just say something to the record? So you're letting someone that's moving into the neighborhood decide whether we can build a new building or not because they don't like what we do?
Hold on 1 second. We've closed the public portion of the meeting. I do have a question. So we're asking for this to be postponed just so we can have a conversation. Does this go through a local design review?
It does, it goes to Euclid Corridor.
Did it go to Euclid
It did.
Corridor?
It went to Euclid for schematic, but
And there are also comments there, just so you know.
so they, I believe these were addressed because he went to schematic a few months ago.
So our
What
current plan has addressed all.
Schematic.
Okay. And this went to local.
I guess I
So-
would wonder if we could ask for schematic approval, since this
This
is
is schematic approval. So now I'm
Correct.
confused. Yes.
Yeah, it was originally posted on the agenda as final, but it should be schematic because it had not gotten back to design review final yet, so this is.
Okay. So we have a motion in a second, and we're gonna have to call the roll on the postponement. I will say I'm a little uncomfortable with, something that is coming for schematic approval, has been through design review, and has gone through the process, has no variances, and, we're postponing something. There is a motion and a second. We will call the roll, but I will say this is going through the process in the way that it should. And so, to you, if this passes, we welcome you back in 2 weeks regardless, right? So,
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Luker,
Yes.
Curry,
no,
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent, no. Slight, yes.
motion carries. You really will be able to come back in 2 weeks. We're asking that you just have a conversation with the CDC, which is Midtown, which you're having today in the councilroom. So they will put you back on the agenda in 2 weeks, and so we'll see you soon. Thank you. Administrative approvals. Take a look at them. There are 6 items. So I'll give you guys a minute just to look through those. Also take a look just to see if anyone in the commission has any abstentions or conflicts before we vote.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the administrative approvals.
Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Luker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
yes,
Sergeant. Yes. Slouch.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, we believe that there may be someone here to represent the case number, well, the 2907G Avenue case.
Okay, the lot split. Okay, is Anthony Corsia here?
Tony? There's a Tony on the line. Is the Tony here for 2907J?
All right, we'll come back. We'll leave that one more time. All right, so we now have a special presentation. I'm gonna just lay a few ground rules. I think there are quite a few people here to speak to this matter, so.
Madam Chair, I have to recuse myself.
Okay, we have a recusal. August's gonna leave the room. I believe also Andrew will be abstaining as well on this matter. So first, I'm gonna just talk about how we're gonna proceed, because I know a lot of people would like to speak to this matter. This is Rediscover St. Clair Superior. This is seeking final approval. We have a presenter, Khalid Hawthorne, will make a presentation on this master plan. So the way that we're gonna proceed. Is that me? Or you? The way that we're gonna proceed is we are going to hear the presentation. We'll hear from the councilman, I believe. Then we will to mute. Anyone? Are you
This
muting?
is Tony. I'm here. I can't unmute myself. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, Tony, I apologize. You're gonna have to wait.
Okay, that's private. No, I just don't give you a heads up.
Oh, can you mute everyone? Okay, so here's how we're gonna proceed. We're gonna hear the presentation. We're gonna hear from anyone representing the project. Then I'm going to open this up to anyone who's here or online who'd like to speak, either in favor or for any reason to this matter. We're going to ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and that you address the chair and the commission directly. We will give everyone an opportunity to speak and hear. So, feel rest assured that we're going to go through this in an orderly manner. And then we're going to close the public portion entirely. And then the commission will have a discussion and be able to ask questions. So once we're done with the kind of public comment, I will close that portion of the meeting, and then we will deliberate after that. So with that, would like to open it up to Khalid or, to the councilman to open.
I do believe Councilman Harrison is on the line. Councilman, would you like to
open
through the chair?
Or Khalid? Is Khalid on?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councilman Anthony Harrison here. Again, thank you all for the opportunity to speak this morning. Thank you to the commission and the department for adding this item to the agenda today. What you have before you today is a plan that started before COVID with Famico Foundation as the lead to help create a plan to help just what it is titled, Rediscover St. Clair Superior. St. Clair Superior, when I took over after Councilman Jeff Johnson, I began to ask questions. Well, has any planning work been done in this neighborhood? What has happened? Has anyone looked at how we can begin to address some of the issues in the neighborhood? And consistently, I was told, well, no, there's never been really any particular development plan or neighborhood plan put together for St. Clair Superior. Glenville plan obviously had existed, had gone through a major process. Other neighborhoods had done the same. And so as the elected council person to represent this neighborhood, I thought it was important that we begin to do just that. Put together a document, a plan that we can all work together toward to be able to transform our neighborhoods. Many times, you hear from residents talking about, or pointing to things that have happened in other parts of the city, in Tremont, Ohio City. And one of the things in downtown, and one of the things that I do know is that they all these neighborhoods had a plan. They had a document or something to work towards. These documents like this plan here are fluid, right? They're changing. They're constantly changing. You add on, you subtract. As new players come in, as new stakeholders get involved, there's additions to plans like this. And so nonetheless, that's how we got to this point. Famicos Foundation stepped in when an organization abandoned our neighborhood due to internal issues that they were having, which is okay. They had to do what they had to do. But the work did not stop. And we were not going to wait around for organization to get them legs back up under them in order for us to begin to do the work. The residents needed support, businesses needed support, and we needed to continue working to help uplift in a positive way the St. Clair Superior community. So I engaged Famicos Foundation to do just that, because we needed someone, even if we consider it in the interim at that moment, to come into the neighborhood and work with us to help address the issues that people were calling our office about, calling the city about, that they were better equipped to support in an immediate way. They did that. Famicos Foundation jumped right in. At that time, Tanya Maness, who's now the head of CMP, was the director of community development at that time. Many folks were part of the conversation in helping to bring Famicos into the neighborhood to support them, because St. Clair Superior had not been able to continue their work at the level that they had prior. So moving on. As we worked through this plan, we engaged many stakeholders. This plan did not come about in a vacuum. There were many voices that went into developing this plan. There were many business owners. There were many former elected officials. There were many individuals who participated and provided detail, provided input, and provided comment and feedback when working to develop this plan. We sought out a highly qualified, reputable, and intelligent firm of City Architecture to do the work. Many of you may not know that City Architecture was considering this neighborhood as their home office, but due to other issues, they did not come to the neighborhood. But they had begun to do some planning already before they had made the decision to come here, which was a good thing, because they had already had an idea about some of the conditions that existed in the neighborhood. And so City Architecture was a great fit to work with. Fast forward, they took the lead in working with the community, engaging stakeholders. I took a step back, because what I wanted to happen was that the neighborhood, that this really was a neighborhood-driven plan, that this was not a plan that elected officials or other stakeholders put their hands on and said, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and then the neighborhood can fall in line. No, we wanted the opposite to happen. We wanted the neighborhood to have the greatest input, and we fall in line with the neighborhood as to what they want to see happen with this plan. And I believe that the engagement between St. Clair Superior and Famicos has just been that. From my knowledge and everything that I know about engagement between the two organizations, that everyone has had an opportunity to be involved from the start. It started with Joe Duffy, who was the former director of St. Clair Superior Development. I pulled up all the emails and all the communications between Mr. Duffy and myself and Famicos and the individuals who were leading this St. Clair Superior plan. And they have been given opportunity to participate at every single turn. I also have an email from Mr. Duffy who was excited about participating, but once he took it to his board did not allow him to continue. And then subsequently, I received a resignation notice that he was no longer with the organization. Now we move to Director Mr. Taylor, who's the new director. We also have the emails that show Mr. Taylor was invited along with his staff to participate in the kickoff of this plan. In fact, St. Clair Superior Development helped organize listening sessions in the neighborhood. And also, I believe, participated as facilitators with discussions at different locations around the St. Clair Superior neighborhood. So at the end of the day, there has been numerous such times where both organizations have been engaged in this plan. St. Clair Superior has not been left out in any such way. In fact, when I first met with Jeremy when he took over as the ED, first thing I said was, you've got to get involved with the St. Clair Superior plan. City architecture is leading this effort, and we'll make sure that you are part of discussions, and feel free to jump in any way that you see fit. And that commitment was made, and that commitment still stands to this day. So I just ask that the commission, I know that you all received a letter, just like many people has, opposing the plan. And my issue is that we cannot, none of us cannot hold this plan hostage because it's about the neighborhood, because two organizations are still trying to find their way and how they both exist and work in the neighborhood. Today's meeting has nothing to do with a MOU of collaboration that one organization is seeking to do work in the neighborhood. The plan has nothing to do with it. This plan is just what it is, a neighborhood plan. And so today I ask that the commission review this plan on its merits alone and make a decision, irregardless to what letters or what people are in the room, what folks come in comments regarding the organization's work themselves. It really strictly stick to the plan that's before them today. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Khalid, are you on the line to make the presentation? Khalid Hawthorne? Can you unmute him? Hold on one second. We're trying to figure out why. Oh, there you go.
Hello.
Okay. Hi, Khalid.
Yeah. Hi. I apologize. I had a bunch of technical issues this morning, but I'm here. Thanks to Councilman for the lead in to this whole. I'll give you a little backstory on how we got here to today. As I said, this process has been around for a while, and we're looking forward to moving forward. So with all the exciting things that are happening in St. Clair Superior. I think is everybody comfortable with the process and how we or do you want more details on the process of the planning process here?
I think just go ahead and we have your slides up if you want to talk about the plan.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So what happened? We've had several. We had several partners here. Julian Curtis, who was actually on here as well. He was from the time I started with Amigos in June of last year. He was our architect, our planner at that point in time. He went on to other positions, but he's on here to provide backstory as well. Provided a majority of the work that's done and that Alex Pesta from the office helped to complete. But this is a broad vision for the neighborhood, and it's a very diverse area, and so that's why we decided to kind of break things up into different districts. I'm not sure. Hold on one second. Yeah. And so can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So we have, like I said, we broke it up into different districts. We looked at different plans from the area that were from the past, and also plans that were in process during our planning process as well. That includes the Cheers study. We work closely with them as well to make sure, specifically around connections, physical connections between the plants that they were creating and with the plants that we were creating, Superior Midway. That's an important cycle track that will be coming through. Basically dropping off at the edge of St. Clair Superior's neighborhood. But we're trying to make sure that that is not the end of it. And once people reach the end of that cycle track, where do they go? And that it's a safe transition between that cycle track and Superior and East 55th, which we actually did walking studies of the corridor there with St. Clair Superior and looking at the traffic, the current traffic conditions, the current public realm, all those things. And, I think it informed, like, we can't get into those details with this particular plan, but what this plan does is inform the future plans that will come for this particular area. Next slide, please. Continue. Next slide, please.
Here's a delay.
Yep. So we did an analysis of what's here, all the historic context of buildings that are around here, buildings that are around here, and the different, like I said, the different parts of the neighborhood. What are the assets of this community? We have, excuse me, we can go to the next slide, please.
I don't know, but those are drinks.
Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah, and this is continuing on with some of those assets and the plans we talked about. This and what we'll start highlighting later is some of the wayfinding programs that we implemented, because what we found is that most people did not really make that connection between St. Clair Superior and the lake because of the barriers that exist currently with the highway systems and the railroads. It's close, but seems far. And so that's something we're going to highlight later as part of our wayfinding initiatives to orient people to where they are and all the amenities in the district, in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Yeah. Continue. Yeah. And so this is some of the things that we highlight as far as the industrial businesses. There are over 600 businesses within the northern St. Clair Superior area. They're kind of hidden to a certain degree behind buildings along St. Clair, but you don't think about all that commercial activity that's in those areas. Those are active businesses. You have the Lakefront Bikeway, the Marina commercial corridor, the existing commercial corridor, which is largely intact, which is rare it's not in the greatest condition, which is a point of opportunity, but that's something that we definitely see as an opportunity to have that existing corridor, a commercial corridor, can be a place for entrepreneurs to thrive and flourish, because they don't building new construction and trying to retrofit small entrepreneurs into those spaces at affordable rate is challenging. So it's a great opportunity to white box some of those spaces. Slovenian National Home is located in the district. Also, you have parks, but we also recognize that there's a need for additional green space and parks or a connection to those existing parks. And of course, there's always the cultural gardens, which we've been working with University Circle and other partners to try to increase connections to those parks, and including there's I'm going to mess up the name. Slawinski Park, I believe, is undergoing improvements currently in the St. Clair Superior area. But again, we're trying to make those connections between the hillside neighborhoods down into the cultural gardens. Next slide, please. Yep. I think I mentioned some of the challenges already, but getting into, yeah, thank you. And also mention some of the opportunities. There's a lot of vacant buildings in the neighborhood. There's a lot of vacant lots, a lot of land bank lots. And so there will be, that is room for additional study as far as getting down into specific neighborhoods or how to redevelop those neighborhoods. We more focused on the corridors here because that is a good starting point to help redevelop those key corridors. The Superior, the East 72nd, East 55th, and that starts inviting more investments within the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Yep. And so, there's definitely investments that have happened over the years. St. Mark de Porres is a high school located in the area. They provide education, but also work opportunities for their students to get experience and work with them in the past. Great students. They learn so many things that are important in being successful in their future careers in college and onward. Yeah. So we also have burgeoning Go East 55th area, and I think it'll be worthwhile it'd be worthwhile looking at what does that area need to be, what is it asking to be, and we'll be working with the community to figure out what specifically for the Sterling site, which unfortunately we've been put before the Planning Commission to address that. It burned in November of 22 and had to be demolished. But we're still looking at how that property will ultimately be developed. We're also working with WRJ on the East 72nd corridor and minority developer who's doing building a apartment complex on East 72nd, so bringing more investment beyond the interactive displays, Disney, and I forget the other displays they had. Oh, the Van Gogh exhibit they've had. I think that's definitely a bonus to have those one-time or ongoing interactive exhibits. But we're also trying to create more activity around that corridor. And then you also have Carolinians going in, not far from there as well, redeveloping an old grocery store. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I've talked about some of the existing businesses and the infrastructure there, which, we talk about the highway. It is a barrier, but it also provides direct access to downtown and places east. So from a industrial standpoint, that is an important aspect of people trying to move products throughout the region. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So when we're talking to the community, like I said, we also partnered with Bike Cleveland, Ingenuity, with some of their neighbor nights in the community. And so it was more, we had formal meetings with the ward and other people, but then we also had these informal meetings where people were gathering, whether that be at Go Horn Brewery or St. Clair Plaza, which is on East 62nd run. It's on St. Clair near the current St. Clair Superior office. Next slide, please. Yeah. And so, like I said, we really focused on connections, and that included, I know we've been shooting for the E66 RAISE grant, which we're trying to get federal funding for that. But again, we don't want that at the end of that project. We don't want people just to dump off there. We want them to be able to continue on. So making sure people are connecting to from East 66th through East 55th and East 72nd through the neighborhood, and really trying to shrink the neighborhood. It is a sizable area, and as we do that, it will bring people. We want to bring people together and make sure everybody has access to all the great assets that are there currently and in the future. And you will also see here is our community event calendar, which details some of the things activities that we had throughout the process. Some of the feedback that we got from some of these events, you see pictures from those. People were focused on infrastructure, which East 55th is a huge one. During our process, there were unfortunately several accidents where people lost their lives. So it is definitely a point that we really need to hone in on, is how to tame East 55th and make it more approachable for people people to be moving via vehicle, cars, and bikes, on foot. And there's plenty of opportunity there as well, especially with as we did the public realm walk. There's a lot of space on the sidewalks, and then even within the right of way to create opportunities for to separate uses. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is some of the survey work that we sent out via. We sent surveys via email, and again, different events that we attended, even beyond just our events, just events in general. We attended other community events as well, getting feedback from people in the community. Next slide, please. So some of the highlights from that engagement are people want to recognize systemic challenges in the neighborhood. They want a sense of safety, which I think those are things that are common. They want to highlight the history of the neighborhood, and it's this area is so much history from different populations that have settled here over time, and highlighting some of those will be key going forward as well, of course. And then the infrastructure, parks, and housing and business growth were top of mind for people in the community, and then trying to bring people together. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah, and so here we're breaking down the corridors that that were important in the area. Yes, these are vehicle corridors, but how can we make these more impactful corridors? Specifically, bringing more commercial activity to the major corridors, and filling in the gaps on some of the other more residential corridors. Next slide, please. And this is how we broke up some of the districts here. These aren't formal districts, but just based on what contextualizing these areas based on their current conditions. As we mentioned, the number of businesses that are in the stealth wealth area, because they're not easily seen, but there's a lot of small businesses there that have created great community wealth in the neighborhoods, and from people who own and work in those areas. You have 55 Arrive, that's a gateway area. Definitely an opportunity area to create more connection to the lake and all the transportation options that are there. The East Side Story, this is where a lot of the part of the neighborhood is located. from a residential perspective. Proximity versus connectivity. This is an area where, like I said, it's a residential area, but that's close to amenities. But again, it can seem far to some of the residents. And if you know area, it's a largely industrial area for the most part, and definitely opportunity area. There was some ideas around connecting to the film industry. That kind of fell apart with the with COVID, but still opportunity to do creative things in that area going forward. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so these slides will continue to go into details as far as what's possible in each of these areas. This slide right here. As you see, we have areas where we consider opportunities for gateways, and if there's infrastructure improvements, we want to make sure we're trying to get those gateway improvements funded as part of those infrastructure improvements. I think it will help identify the area, so when people come in, they know that they're in St. Clair Superior. It's been very successful in branding Midtown and other neighborhoods. I think it'll be successful here as well. Next slide. And this is detailing some of the stealth wealth areas where the industrial buildings are located. Next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. Yep. And so this is East Side Story. Like I said, you get into the heart of the neighborhood where Slavic Village Development Corporation is located. And just trying to bring attention to what is possible in these corridors and in the neighborhood in particular. Next slide, please. And so there's actually when you're in these neighborhoods, you start seeing things, even things that are on corridors that are hidden in plain sight. There's like a almost 2-acre greenhouse facility and urban farm area that's right on Superior. There's all these little underutilized resources, and we've been trying to connect people to those resources and reactivating those spaces. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide. And so this is showing the a conceptual plan for the film studios and film district here, and that did not come to fruition, but definitely the opportunity to do other things that are similar, right? This kind of gives you an idea of the scale of what can be done in those particular areas. Next slide. And this is a key point here. This is when we look at the art tunnel. So this is similar to the West 73rd tunnel that allows Detroit Shore to access the Edgewater. So when we're talking to Cheers, those are the connections that we're talking about. Yes, sir, you can access the North Lakeshore via, say, East 55th, East 72nd, but trying to create another connection in between, whether that's a bridge or a tunnel, in the middle of the neighborhood, so that it's all about increasing connections via foot or bicycle to areas north of St. Clair Superior. Next slide, please.
There you are. Interesting.
Planning commission member, new planning commission member. And so this is talking about some of the work that we've done with along the cultural gardens and then those connections that we were talking about earlier. We continue. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And so this is where we spent a lot of time, especially, pause right there. We wanted to not only have projects that were long-term thinking, yes, we want to think long-term and beyond. When I think long-term, I think beyond even my, I don't plan to work much past 62, hopefully. And so that's the time frames I'm looking at. What does the next 15 to 30 years look like for St. Clair Superior? But also, we also wanted things we could act on today. And with Bike Cleveland and Ingenuity, they came up with this wayfinding initiative. I think it's great. It engaged the community. And some of the survey questions that we discussed, they ended up being part of this wayfinding initiative. And like I said, basically rooting people in where they are at that point in time, in that point where they are. You are, half a mile from the lake. You are, this attraction or this amenity is just down the road. So these are decals that will be placed throughout the community, some on the ground decals, some will be placed on signs, and just a fun way to orient people within the neighborhood and celebrate the things that are already here. Next slide. Yeah. And so this is discussing some of the opportunities for incentive programs or special improvement districts that have been successful in other corridors for safety and cleanliness in those areas. It's worked with West 25th and with this existing core of buildings, a special improvement district will go a long way to help increase not only the connection between the Merchants Association in this area and the businesses, but also help keep attracting people to the St. Clair Superior area. Next slide, please. Again, I don't even know if this slide really shows the vacant land. It doesn't pop like it does when it's in green, but it works with the color scheme of the slide. But there's a lot of vacant land in this area, so that like what I see is opportunity to redevelop those lots at some point in time. Some of those will be side yards, some of those will be new houses, some of those will be multifamily, and it's definitely an opportunity to create some affordable housing, some workforce housing, and market rate as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here we're talking about some of the developments that's in process or planned in the area. Of course, we talked about the Sterling site. We have had Mikos has had tentative plans to develop senior housing on this site, pending financing. There's other areas like the First Energy site, which is a huge opportunity. That's definitely long term. So many things can be done with that site. There's exciting announcements like the investments that are being made into Gordon Park and the reserve area. It'd be great to unify those at some point in time. That's definitely a huge lift. But these are areas that are definitely important to the development along the shoreway there. Next slide, please.
Wait, just asking, how many, still have quite a bit to go?
We can move forward quicker if you like.
I mean, as you get into implementation, I mean, hit what you need to, but keep moving.
Yeah, okay, no problems. Yeah, actually, we're probably pretty close to the end because we're getting into recommendations. So that's
Okay.
basically spelling out what needs to be done, which items will be more costly than others to implement. Is following on everything that was mentioned before in the plan, and how do we put those ideas into motion, and which ones do we start with first, and timeframes around that. The rest is pretty much breaking those items down by the districts and drilling in. And that is pretty much that one slide previously pretty much sums up everything afterwards. Except the other slides are getting into a little bit more detail. Like I said, this is a neighborhood vision. I definitely see some of the other plans to come forward being informed by this vision and getting into the details of implementation and further discussions with the community. I'd like to open up for questions and at this point.
Or before commission is it going to take questions once I close the public portion? So
I'm sorry.
Hold on those, and we'll hold what we are going to ask. If anybody else from the applicant team or the group that is presenting would like to present or say anything before I open it up to the public. Okay.
Good morning. I'm sorry. Good morning. This is Julian Curtis. I'll be brief. I know we've been going a little long. Just want to add a few pieces around just how collaborative.
Please, can you mute, please, now?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead, Julian. Sorry.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to build a few of the points that Khalid made around just the collaborative nature of the work that I believe is reflected through the recommendations, and really just the notion around how many layers this neighborhood has in terms of asset and history and culture that has felt kind of in isolation and much like a pass through to date, and what we're trying to highlight in recognition of this kind of the swirling investment happening and approaching on the neighborhood is how can this neighborhood be positioned to benefit, and the folks that have invested a lot, both from a business perspective, both from personal perspectives and homes, and recognizing that there is lots of vacant land and frankly opportunity in this place. So how can we position the neighborhood to benefit from it, to not suffer from displacement, but really capture the investment opportunities that are forthcoming, and positioning the neighborhood to be more highlighted and recognized for kind of the riches that it has. So that's it. Just want to commend the work that was done, and was happy to be a part of it. So.
Okay, thank you. So the way we're going to operate now is if you'd like to speak, either if you're online, you can hit the raise hand feature. If you're here, just raise your hand. I'm going to take people in order. Please address the chair and the commission directly, 3 minutes or less, and please state your name and address, or your name, where you work, business, for the record. They're going to kind of keep the record, and we'll go from there. So anybody here who would like to speak first, or anyone? Go ahead.
Morning, Chair. I'm Anthony Traska. I'm here on behalf of Traska Road Council.
Okay.
Clear. Jeremy Taylor is executive director. He's going to speak first, and I know there's some others that will speak, and then I'll close up.
To the chair, before we begin, we are going to just put a timer so that we're fair on the timing.
3 minutes or less.
So less, I can.
Yeah, 3 minutes a long time.
Thank you all. My name is Jeremy Taylor. I'm the executive director of St. Clair Superior Development Corporation. I'm also a 2-year resident, St. Clair Superior, East 60th Street. And thank you all to the commission for allowing us to get some time today. We will be quick and efficient. The St. Clair Superior service area goes from East 30th Street to Martin Luther King Boulevard, and then Payne and Superior north to Lake Erie. We're guided by a strategic plan that focuses on people, place, and performance. I'm joined here today by board members, board leadership, and residents from the community. And during a June 7th St. Clair Superior Board meeting where the leadership of Famicos was a guest, the board was surprised to learn that Famicos had already submitted this plan for consideration to the City Planning Commission without informing St. Clair Superior. Because of this and further information that we are about to share, the board of directors did not vote to approve the vision plan. The plan did very little to describe the work, commitment, and progress that St. Clair Superior has shown in their commitment to residents of the St. Clair Superior neighborhood, such as we moved our offices to the Slovenian National Home, the heart of the neighborhood. It's a storefront. We have been hosting monthly community meetings. We installed a Welcome to St. Clair Superior neighborhood mural at Angela's Restaurant at a critical intersection to the neighborhood at 67th and St. Clair. We entered into a contracted placemaking effort with Land Studio to complete activities which will include neighborhood branded signage, banners, public art, and a series of community meetings ensuring the insertion of residential and business owner voice. And we revitalized the St. Clair Plaza, which included repairing a sidewalk along East 64th Street. I'm asking the commission here today to table consideration of the Famicos plan until our CDCs can come together on a collaborative agreement to address these issues and provide a process for how we will work together in the St. Clair Superior neighborhood. Our request is that commission recognize our longstanding role in community and require Famicos to participate in a collaborative process of developing any strategic plan within the St. Clair Superior service area. Even after realizing the plan did not visibly showcase St. Clair Superior Development Corporation's passion and commitment to the neighborhood, the board asked Famicos to enter into a collaboration agreement with one another which would create an agreed upon set of guidelines and principles for both organizations to follow and thereby effectively service the residents of the surrounding neighborhoods. Famicos leadership was not willing to enter into this agreement, and since Famicos has been unwilling to meet together. All we're asking for is fair treatment through collaborative meetings and conversations between St. Clair Superior and Famicos around the development of agreement which places in writing clearly identified processes and terms that our longstanding history with the St. Clair neighborhood be recognized and respected. We will keep the City Planning Commission appraised throughout this entire process. And now I'd like to turn it over to a wonderful woman and a long-standing board member of our board and a member of the Governance and Placemaking Committee, Mrs. Jennifer Chandler.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Chandler. I am a longtime board member. I've been on the board at least 8 years. And before that was volunteer with the organization. I've been involved with St. Clair Superior since 2003, and I was a 16-year resident during that time. I've been with St. Clair Superior through all their ups and downs. We are currently rebuilding. I was with St. Clair Superior when we won Community Development Corporation of the Year. We have a 40-year history in this neighborhood. We're very well aware of everything that is going on. We're engaged in the same partnerships that Famicos is involved with. And let's see, I just wanted to get into what I do. My background is in public health and in community health education. And so I serve on the placemaking committee and on the fundraising and events committee. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we have a secondary vision statement that involves just the people of the neighborhood. Because this is a wonderful old world, has an old world flavor, and we want to preserve that as well as introduce new concepts. And a lot of the presentation that's been done here, we had already worked with then Councilman Jeff Johnson on. So we're familiar with pretty much everything that they spoke about today. Councilman Hairston had his own vision of who to work with when he came into office. I think there were some inaccuracies in the presentation that we dealt with. So, we are moving forward. We're smaller than Famigos. And we have had to rebuild, and we're really rebuilding at breakneck speed. We have a strategic plan. We have vision statements, we have a secondary vision statement. And to us, collaboration and partnership implies trust, respect, and communication. And we have not had that because I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. Communication has just not been there. So I just wanted to say that we're working very hard. We've been in this neighborhood for 40 years. We know it very well. We know the people very well. And we have a connection there that is long-standing. And I think that needs to be respected. So I'm going to move on and over to Russell Morgan, who is our placemaking chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Russell Morgan. I'm a board member and chair of the placemaking committee. I've been on the St. Clair Superior Board now for a little more than 3 years. In that time, I've had the opportunity to chair the strategic planning committee, the search committee, which we're able to find our new director, Jeremy, and the placemaking committee. I'm here to just support the organization, to say that we're not the same organization that we were when the vision, which actually started as a master plan, and thanks to the mission is now a vision plan for the community. We were wise enough to change that name. We are much stronger than we were 4 years ago. Famigos decided that this was right ground to take over. That's an unprecedented move in itself. It's never been done. It's nothing like Detroit Shoreway supported Metro West. It's a totally different atmosphere and a totally different working relationship. But all we're asking for is an opportunity to sit at the table and to form a working relationship. That's what was asked by our board vice president when what at the time was presented to us. And I have to be honest with you, this is not the same document that was presented at our June 7th board meeting. We didn't vote to approve it then, and our full board has not had an opportunity, nor has our placemaking committee had an opportunity to review this document and vote on it. So that's the second reason we're asking you to table it until our board can at least look at it. We're not saying that we won't vote to approve it, that we won't work with Famigos, but at least give us an opportunity to look at the vision plan, to see where we can fit in, how we can work together, and let us sit down with Famigos and form how we can work together in the community. We have asked, I myself called their board chair. She said she would refer to John Analifo. They have been mute at every step along the way. I see he came into the room today. So once again, he's hearing me ask on behalf of our organization for the opportunity to sit down professionally and form a working relationship if you are forcefully going to enter, as no other CDC has done historically, and work in our community. At least let's do it professionally. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak? Go ahead.
Morning to the chair and the board members. My name is Carl Scout. I am a business owner, property owner, 25 plus year resident of the St. Clair Superior Development Corporation. I go back to the days of Councilman Simperman when he represented the area. Some of you might be old enough to remember him. Some of you may be old enough to remember when local food was a thing in Cleveland, and a place called Blue Pike Farm, the first farm started in Cleveland this century. I'm familiar with the executive director of the Famigos Corporation. He's been a customer of mine, and when I was a vendor at a farmer's market that the organization sponsored on 105th and Ashbury. I'm afraid that some of the assertions that I've heard on the part of the councilman and the Famigos organization, I believe are misrepresentation. One, I object to the councilman's assertion that somehow or other the St. Clair Superior Development Corporation has abandoned the community. I first became aware of the organization in the early part of the century, and I've gone through 5 different executive directors. I have never heard from anybody from the Famigos Corporation. I've been to a number of their dog and pony shows. I'm familiar with the executive director, and he may or may not remember me. He purchased honey from me. You do, good. So,
Please
the Famigos-
address the chair.
Pardon me?
It's a policy. We ask that you address the chair and not anyone in the audience.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay.
So, Famigos Corporation knows that I exist. The councilman knows that I exist. I've passed out business cards, all the different email accounts and businesses that I have. And the first that I've heard about this particular proposal was a week ago when the CDC director of the St. Clair Development Corporation, Jeremy, contacted. This is a surprise to me. I have no idea what's in this document. I do know that I didn't even know that there was a process involved with. And I'm also painfully aware that how difficult it is for people who are doing marketing and promotion and that sort of thing to contact everybody. They can't. Sometimes people fall through the cracks. I have fallen through the cracks because I never got the memo that this was even a proposal or in the works. So I would recommend that this group here postpone any action today for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
I'm sorry, I would,
Okay.
thank you. I'll just stay here if you don't mind. My name is Kevin Cronin. I live in St. Clair Superior area. I work in St. Clair, and I've been pleased to work with St. Clair Superior Development. I think they're doing a grand job of trying to rebuild and strengthen the neighborhood. I participated in some of the activities that were going on that I recognized in this report, but I too didn't know it was finally distilled and was even being submitted. I think that at the outset, when we first started having some of the discussions, we actually discussed and said that this was a way of everybody coming together and working. That City Council, Ms. House was going to be involved, and Mr. Harrison was going to be involved, and that this represented that City and Council were going to be able to come together for the benefit of St. Clair Superior. The same would be true of the major organizations. Famigos was obviously a prominent part, but St. Clair Superior Development was a prominent part, that they were going to work together and come together on the betterment of the neighborhood. And somehow that fell apart as we kept moving on forward. I think that it's regrettable, but St. Clair has been poorly represented in Cleveland City Council. We've gone through 2 council members who served 1 term and were gone. And they may have violated laws, or they may have acted poorly, but they're gone. And so now we finally have some leadership in council that we think is more stable. Ms. House has been very supportive. So I think that there are better days ahead. But I think that we shouldn't be rewarding Famigos for jumping into a void when St. Clair is just building up again from a bad start. But St. Clair is making tremendous progress from what I've been able to see. And I think that there are great things to be said for the neighborhood about the idea of being a lakefront community, about being the old community, the old ethnic community around, along with the kind of the newly emerging community. And I think that's all to the strength of the neighborhood, and all of those strengths are represented in St. Clair Superior Development, as far as I can tell. So I think they deserve a higher opportunity, a bigger opportunity to kind of reassess themselves. And if they're asking to say that Famigos jumped the gun on this and they need time to go through the report more thoroughly, I'm all for that.
Thank you. John?
Madam Chair and members of the board, my name is John Amabifo. I am the executive director of the Famigos Foundation. This is my 21st year of Famigos. In that 21 years that I have done this job, I've seen a lot of things, I've witnessed a lot of things. What I have not witnessed, maybe I have, is a friend or friends throwing a friend under the bus for their own benefit. It is well known as this City Hall that the Amicus Foundation serves of Glenville and Ward 10 part of St. Clair Superior. We came there by invitation of the council person and some businesses. Those businesses are not represented here. We were not looking for expansion when this thing happened. We were happy to help, and we did. There are businesses in the Clair Superior that will tell you that during the pandemic, we brought them money that helped them pay their rent or buy supplies. We worked very closely with the executive director of St. Clair Superior, Jeremy. He was brought to me by leadership of that board, the same board, to mentor him. He and August Fluker came to me. We were meeting every quarter to talk about collaboration, what we can do together. This plan was a collaboration between Famicos Foundation and St. Clair Superior. When he came to me and said that he wanted me to come and present to his board, I said, why me? You were part of it from beginning to end. Every part of this plan, they had opportunity to critique and comment. Many times, it went through between him and Michelle. So it is not something that Famicos cooked up and brought to the board to approve. They participated. He participated. I don't want to throw you under the bus and say the things you told me that was responsible for you coming to me the way you did to come and present it to your board. I don't want to say that. I am an old man. I'm older than him. He's younger than my children. I've taken him under my wing to mentor him on how to do this business. And he knows that he is not telling the truth in this presentation. I have the letter that he read to you. It was sent to me and every member of my board, even those that have died. They put them in a big envelope and brought to me. That letter, what he read, is not true. They are lying. One person on the board, one person in their board is responsible for what is going on. We went, presented, the whole board were happy with the presentation. One person said, hold on. If we allow this to happen, Famicos will take over this neighborhood. I was asked to sign a document, a cooperative document that I am going to work with St. Clair Superior. I said, I am not going to tell you here that I'm going to sign this document without knowing what you are giving me to sign. Give it to me. They have been sending this letter, but they never gave me a document to sign. You give me a document, an agreement to sign, I read it, I will tell you whether there's an amendment that I need or that I need to sign it the way it is. So, Madam Chair, whatever you guys decide, I'm fine with it. But just know, Jeremy is not being honest to this commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name again for the record. Yep.
Thank you. My name is Anthony Traska. I'm an attorney for Traska Rose and Fowler here on behalf of St. Clair Superior. I know that a letter was just referenced, and my partner, Ben Fowler, he wrote the correspondence that I believe was submitted, circulated, and submitted to the record. Again, appreciate the time today. Appreciate you giving St. Clair a voice today. There's a lot that's been out here, and a lot of details, a lot of context. The letters may help, but I think that the folks from St. Clair, all the leadership and all the stakeholders here, they spoke to it. I think the facts bear out. Things that we can easily agree on is that the St. Clair board has not approved anything that was presented today. And it also appears that there is a spirit of interest in working together toward a collaborative agreement, perhaps. We need more time for that. And whatever was presented today is not a plan, it was a vision. I mean, it was spoken to, but there's a lot there that not only the history and the legacy of St. Clair, not only acknowledging the rebuilding that they've been doing over these years, acknowledging that we're in different circumstances than we were when this plan started 4 years ago. We're not through COVID, but that was, we're different times today, and St. Clair's a different CDC. There's a way for CDCs to work together, and this is not it. And acting to do anything to push this forward at all formally is just premature, because it doesn't serve the city, it doesn't serve the CDCs or the residents of St. Clair. So again, the ask is simply for more time. I think maybe now both parties are showing that they're willing to work together. We can work toward a collaboration agreement. We can do this off, outside of the agenda item, and we can report back. I think, St. Clair deserves the opportunity, and everyone is willing to do it. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm
Since
sorry, just 1 second.
okay, and just really quickly, because there are a few more.
It is hard to work together when someone has just stood in a public meeting and called us liars. We're not liars, and that's all I want to say. We're for our neighborhood. We're not against any other CDC, but we are not liars, and I resent that being said. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Christina Reeves. I'm a resident, owner, been there for about 16 years. I've gone through Superman all the way here, and I've seen a lot of changes. And I always feel we're separated, and you'll all work out at the end that we are helping each other, because that's what we're all about in this neighborhood, St. Clair Superior. Because I'm always seeing, we're kind of left on St. Clair all the time. So I appreciate all coming today. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? We'll go ahead, and then we'll go here and then here. Okay.
My name is Lolita Wilson. Thank you, Chair, for speaking. I'm a local resident of St. Clair Superior. I'm also a local artist. I live at the Hodge School building, been there 17 years, where everybody's not really paying attention to that area. It's like a dead zone for everybody. I really want to be at the table. I've been a member and participating with St. Clair Superior Development Corporation, but I also want to be a member with my group, my artist collective, to help to present visions. But we need to be at the table with St. Clair Superior, Councilman Harrison, Hawthorne, and Feliz to be part of the vision, because you can't have a vision without an artist in art. Especially someone who lives here, has ideas about how to collaborate with the community with a vision. So I would like to be penciled in somewhere along the line. I think Councilman Harrison, you have my information. I emailed you and also called your office.
Please address the chair.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chairperson. I would like for someone to contact me. I am very visible on social media. You can contact me through St. Clair Superior. They have my information, I also have my information on the calling sheet here, the attendance sheet. I like to be a part of that. Our vision for St. Clair Superior.
Thank you very much.
My name is Juan filling in Ward 7 and also precinct person. Okay, I had called him last minute when I come to this meeting and I just went over to the Broadway area. I think what happens is a lot of times the lady I took last night to a meeting and two meetings in Broadway, she owns property. And she was not aware of the meetings. I'm the kind of person that picks up papers everywhere I go and look and share information with others. I think what's happening here is miscommunication. When we started, the councilman said he called in for me to go to the things that Nico mentioned that too. And so I think it's been miscommunication and misunderstanding. And maybe there's been that live in the area, specific area, have not had communication because a lot of times this meeting is going on in City Hall or whatever that affect the citizens in the area, and they're not aware of it. And sometimes when things are posted on Facebook about things, it's like the next day or 2 days later. So some kind of way that people need to get more input. I go to the St. Clair Superior activities. I go to the Midtown activities. Although I live downtown, part of St. Clair Superior, Midtown is part of Woodside. And so therefore, by being a precinct person, I attend all those kind of meetings. And so I think that maybe they should table this, whatever you need to do at this moment. Both parties have spoken about their sentiments or whatever. I don't know what's true, what's untrue, but everybody has a right to their opinion. I think it should be tabled at this time that they can communicate more directly since they're both present and work some kind of strategy or whatever out. I think for me, because there's a lot of work with the plan. Like I said, they have bigger books and stuff like that. And I know that when you look at things, they draw a little line about where the areas are. But for Nichols didn't jump in, they would call them. And they do several really good things and activities and stuff. I think that both parties should try to get together and give it a minute, like you told the other gentleman to come back.
Yeah.
Give them a minute to talk, right? Not in front of us, maybe personally, not name calling. Don't throw each other underneath the bus. And give them an opportunity to try to work there and give them a time frame.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else, that would like to speak? Anybody online, if you raise your hand. So I think, we're gonna close the public portion. I'm sorry?
Chairwoman, can I speak to the relationship between St. Clair Superior and Tamikos a little bit? This covers.
Okay, but please be brief. We do need to close this and have a conversation.
Okay.
And then the director needs to say a few words, but please be brief. Go ahead, Khalid.
Okay, yes, and as John mentioned, we're friends with St. Clair Superior. I communicate regularly with Jeremy and Michelle on a regular basis. I work with Michelle closely in my previous job with Tremont West. So we have a relationship. And communication is not the issue between staff. Now, it is a job of, I do not communicate with St. Clair Superior's board because that's not my board. It's the job of the executive director. That's proper governance as far as communication to the board of another CDC. So that's all I can do to describe that situation. So if there was a breakdown, then I don't know what it's from. But we work together on a regular basis and share information. Everything that is part of this plan has been shared. It would have been great for them to be able to catalyze all these people that say they have not been communicated with. If they were able to reach out to them earlier throughout this process, that'd be great. Because they are our partners in community engagement.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna close the public portion. Apologize. Okay, one more. Last one, if that's okay.
Ward 10 is only one,
Oh, sorry, your name, please. For the
Patricia Antoine.
I'm on board. And a resident.
Okay.
Anthony Harrison represents Ward 10, but that's not the only board that our service area covered. Ward 7 is also, and you need to have input from our other council.
Okay, thank you. It's important. Good. All right, we're closing the public portion. I'm gonna ask the director to say a quick word, but then I really want the commission to have a moment to ask any questions or comments.
I have a few comments. I think the first is I do want to acknowledge that there was a lot of transition between 2019 and today. Council persons have changed over, executive directors, administrations, even staff members within the planning department. We have a new planner as of last fall for this particular area, and also staff members within the CDCs. You know, we were all coming into this planning process that had started back in 2019. On behalf of the planning department, I did want to share the process that we went through in this discussion, just for your knowledge and context. This actually was originally supposed to be, it was on the agenda, placed on the agenda March 3rd, 2023, following a design review meeting. At that time, actually the day of, Khalid remembers that I actually called and said, hey, I want to pull the agenda item from today's meeting because I, as a director, had not had a chance to really sit down and hear the plan itself and understand from the staff members. Since then, on May 26th, we met with both St. Clair Superior and Famicos to understand the plan. So we walked through the slides, similar slides to what were presented today, perhaps more in a draft form. At the time, it sounded like everyone was on their way towards working together. We did give more time to St. Clair Superior to take it to the board in June. Since then, a lot has unfolded, and I have not really been involved, so I cannot speak to what has. And we are here today hearing the plan with a lot of the comments that you've heard today. I also want to acknowledge that this is an uncomfortable situation for the Planning Commission. It is not the role of the Planning Commission to arbitrate board to board or organization to organization. It's the Planning Commission's purview to review plans for neighborhoods. And so I did want to acknowledge the chair that, really kind of a lot of the discussions need to happen outside of Planning Commission. However, how we see things is that there are many partners working in every neighborhood, whether it's CDCs, whether it's small businesses, whether it's developers. I'm over 3 minutes. And even the metro parks, right? They're coming in with the Cheers program, which has been a part of the planning process for a while, as well as the new Gordon Park planning that is going to kick off at some time. And so really there's going to be many, many partners involved. So, ultimately, I would like to just say that to me as a planning director, it really shows, and I've spoken this with many of the CDCs, that the city itself, the planning department, needs to be much more of a leader in the planning process because of how that is our chartered role, as well as, that would include the many partners that we see before us. And that statement is a little bit outside of what we're trying to review today with the plan, but ultimately, that is a role that I hope to continue building capacity so that the planning department will be leading on those long-range plans and goals. And that is also something that I believe Cleveland Neighborhood Progress has also shared with us as well. So all in all, the plan itself, we heard it today, it's a neighborhood vision is how we're kind of labeling it. It is a document that really lays out the assets and studies and analyzes the various physical assets and the social assets. It gives a neighborhood trajectory, and it is kind of a branding document to show the different types of neighborhoods. So the plan in itself, objectively, the neighborhood vision, seems on point. Really, there needs to be an expansion of the particular vision into something more specific, and we should allow some time for much of the discussion to happen offline, as it's not our role to arbitrate organization to organization.
All right, thank you. Commission member can open it up. Any questions, comments?
I would agree with, Director Wong. I would agree with Director Wong. I think generally speaking, I think beyond what's in the document, the plans for implementation are also really important. I think not having a CPC ready to implement what's in the document just means it's going to be planned. And because St. Clair Superior Development Corporation is responsible for the service area, I don't feel comfortable approving or adopting a plan that they feel they are not ready to implement, regardless of what is necessarily in the plan. So I think, you know, you all need to come together and understand whatever needs to change in terms of the things that are in the document, but also come together in regards to implementation. Who is going to actually see many of these things through and take these things, into their organization to actually shepherd them. Because again, without that, the plan is going to sit in this PDF form and not actually have any benefit to the community.
Madam Chair, I certainly agree with all of those comments, and to that end, I'd like to make a motion to table this, the rediscovered St. Clair Superior final approval request so that the stakeholders in the neighborhood can collaborate and get to a better working relationship, to work together to finalize the plan and then to take ownership of who is and how it's going to be implemented.
We have a motion. Since we have a motion, I'll ask for a second, then we can have further discussion if you had anything you want to say, but I need a second if there is one.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If you're abstaining, you can't second, just so you know. Go ahead.
So my question for the director, who owns this plan? So we have three names here. And my understanding is that city council put forward legislation seeking to create a plan. Is this city council's plan being brought before the planning commission, and these are secondary partners that were asked to help shepherd it? But at the end of the day, the ownership of the plan, I guess, in my opinion, and I want to clarify, is not with either of those organizations. It's the cities. The city commissioned this. Is that correct?
The city council commissioned it.
So I mean, to your point, direct. Thank you.
And it was paid for by the councilman. So I think, you know, that is why it's on the agenda, because of due process to bring forward agenda items.
Thank you for the clarification. And to that end, I'm uncomfortable with postponing it because I think that effectively we are stepping into an interorganizational dispute when the charge was through legislation to come forward with a plan that would then come before this body. And to the transition, the layers of transition that the director referenced, I think that there's actually something worth commending, that through series of transitions of leadership and organizations, that city architecture and others were able to come forward with an engagement policy that brought forward what a roadmap is. And this seems like a very good roadmap. I'm hearing no one give any substantial questions or comments or concerns about what the actual vision is. It seems like we have a roadmap before us and we're arguing over who's driving. And I don't see value in allowing, as we have a lakefront plan, as we have plans in this entire, on the east side surrounding this neighborhood, to put off any further having a trajectory for what's right now kind of the empty, the donut hole in the middle of the east side. So I'm not, if obviously there has been a motion, I think it's obvious which way I will vote on that motion, but I'm not confident what is going to change in this document between now and another meeting, besides allowing an inter-organizational dispute that really has no legal standing. I mean, yes, an attorney wrote a letter, but there's no standing here. This is egos. So I don't think, if the purpose of the master plan is to help the residents and the businesses, this is not serving them by just punting on what's an interorganizational dispute.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Director Wong, just some clarifying questions. I feel like we're conflating some terms. Vision plan, neighborhood plan, master plan.
Yeah.
What is the plan that is before us right now?
So the plan before you is this PDF document that informally, we do not have a structure of identifying what's a standardized, what is a master plan, neighborhood vision. That is a direction that we are moving in. In the discussion in May 26th, I brought to both St. Clair and Famico saying this is a neighborhood vision because we're not diving too much into the details around, specific developments and zoning, other things that really I really believe the planning department should be driving in the city of Cleveland. And so at that time, there was sense of concurrence around that. And so neighborhood vision is what is before you today. It's not a strategic plan for an organization. It's a neighborhood vision and branding and asset document.
Thank you, Director. Madam Chair, so I think there's a lot here. There's a lot here. I am in agreement about the postponement. I hear Councilman Slice's comments about where we are in the process. However, ultimately, my understanding is that St. Clair Superior Community Development Corporation is the responsible entity that would see through what has been detailed in this neighborhood plan and bring the action items to fruition. And I understand that our role is not to get into the arbitration between two organizations or residents between two neighborhoods or multiple neighborhoods, excuse me. However, I don't have confidence that right now that we could proceed with making sure that the implementation is done with efficacy as it relates to what has been detailed. I do believe that it is a comprehensive plan. And while, again, we should not get into the weeds of what has happened between 2019 and present day, ultimately there is one entity that is responsible for the implementation. I'm also curious to the parties that have been presenting today. Obviously, we have Councilman Harrison that commissioned this process, but as noted in slide 7, obviously this footprint covers a couple of different boards. So I'd be curious to hear from the other council persons that represent this particular footprint as well, to gain a better understanding of where they stand, where and if any involvement they've had in the development of this plan, and how they foresee this coming to fruition through the implementation phase. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're going to call the roll. Two comments, one positive, one. I think it's really wonderful that so many of you came out. Post-pandemic, this is the first meeting that we've had this much participation. And so I say, from a positive note, if you have this many people who are interested and willing to be involved in their neighborhood and community, that is a really good thing. And so harness that as you go forward. This doesn't happen very often. And so I think that for me is just a really good thing. So that's first. Second, I do think that from our role in the commission is one of also good public policy. And our role is not to really arbitrate kind of issues like this, but from a public policy perspective or from a, let's say, a precedent point of view, I've been on the commission more than 15 years. And I honestly have not seen a situation like this, though. And I'm not sure that it's a good precedent to think about across the city as a whole in how plans might come in an area where there is a CDC that has a service area and you don't have the kind of collaboration that you want. I think it's possible here. So my point is a very positive one. This is a good problem to have, I think, if there's such a thing. And so, but I also am concerned about a precedent that we might see happen across the whole city. If I haven't seen this before, where there hasn't, I've seen it, we've seen it, but where there isn't an active CDC. We have not seen it where there is an active CDC. So that is concerning from this commission's purview. So that is my comment. And anybody else on the commission before we call the roll? Just to remind you, the motion was to table.
Yes.
There was a second. Did you have the second? Yes. Okay, you good? Can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant. Abstain. Slight.
No.
Motion carries. When you are ready, and you come back, you can come back anytime. They will make time on the commission for when you all feel you can come back together. So thank you very much, and thank you for spending your time on a Friday morning here with us at the Planning Commission. If you can go quickly, we have one more big item, so we have, if you're gonna stay, you can stay, but we need to kind of get on to the last presentation as well. You need to stand up.
The chair, we do have the lot split.
Let's do it real fast.
Yeah. Is Mrs. Tony still on the call?
Give them 1 sec to go.
I'm still here.
Okay, you're gonna go next. Thank you all. Thank you. All right, we're going back to page 3. This is item number 2, permanent parcel number 003-32-067. This is at 2907 J Avenue. This is a lot split. Tony, please go ahead. And we're gonna go back to the slides. Hold on a second. It's gonna take a minute, but you can start. There you go. All right, Tony.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so in essence, it's at one time it was 2 homes on both parcels. And the client that currently lives next door would like to build a new home on their other lot, which requires the lot to be replatted to a parcel. And I mean, I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Do you have a lot split?
Yes, should have, Mr. Bozak should have had that included in the, there you go. The split has already been reviewed and approved by the county, but obviously the city engineering needs to review and approve it. They have everything and they're just waiting on the board's approval as such.
Okay. Commissioner Member?
For the staff side, that this particular proposal. Will you please mute? Thank you. This single family home has gone through the Landmarks Commission since this is in a historic district. It was approved by the design review and the Landmarks Commission, so they are all signed off on this.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval on this lot split at 2907 J Avenue.
We have a motion?
I second.
Motion and Denise McCray Scott is second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Hoover,
Abstain.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant. Yes. Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, last item is another presentation. It's transit-oriented development, demand management. This is for information only. Matt Moss, is he here or is he on the? Oh,
He's right there.
Hi. There you go, Matt.
As we standing up, I just want to share.
Come from? There's a door over there.
He just joined the commission. So really quickly, this is a new policy that Matt has been working on for some time with his strategic initiatives section in our department. Last August, he did also share with you the 2022 story map document about transit-oriented development, generally speaking, in Cleveland. Cuyahoga County Planning Commission also has come to share an informational update about their TOD work. And so we're excited to take the next step, moving this into policy. This particular piece was introduced last week, July 12th, at City Council. While it is not before you as a vote today, this is informational only. It will be before you the next meeting, August 4th, as a mandatory referral. So we wanted to give you time to understand the policy, to digest it, and then bring it before you next time.
Thank you, Director. Like the Director mentioned, we've been talking about this occasionally since really last year. And it's been a focus, I think, on some of our work, especially with strategic initiatives. I'm happy to run you through a presentation with some background information, what the policy is, what the legislation does, and what we can look forward to with it. So let's see. It's a bit of delay on this screen, but I'll just work through it in terms of case.
Make sure to speak up so the microphone.
Sure. So what we're here to talk to you about today is, in some ways, building the 50-minute city. Specifically, this is related to TOD policy and the actual TDM program that we created in collaboration with our partners across City Hall, our partners at the county, and of course, various other stakeholders in the city of Cleveland. Yeah, a little bit. So I'm just going to table set with some shared definitions. We've talked about these things at various times and in various settings. But just for the sake of this presentation, some shared definitions to work with. So what do we mean when we talk about the 15-minute city? This is really important to Mayor Bim in terms of how we look at land use and development patterns across the city now and into the future. Essentially what it is a vision of Cleveland where every resident can thrive, meeting their basic needs and accessing amenities with a 15-minute walk, bike ride, transit trip, or car rides. We're really being inclusive of all of those here. However, in Cleveland, we're already a 15-minute city if you're driving. You can just about anywhere you might need to go or want to go within 15 minutes in a car. So that box is checked. We're focused on elevating those other modes, walking, biking, rolling, public transit to that same level of accessibility. And what do we mean by transit-oriented development? TOD most often comes to this commission in the form of new construction. We see projects that are newly proposed near transit, whether it's a bus line or a train line, and what we're defining this as, and really just reinforcing this definition in partnership with our partners, is that it's a land use pattern that centers mixed-use walkable development around transit. Pretty straightforward. And part of the TOD is prioritizing mobility for people, reduce dependency on cars as the only reliable or convenient mode of transportation. Again, in Cleveland, we see a lot of TOD into the form of new investment, but TOD is also important as a adaptive reuse strategy too. Cleveland was originally a transit city. We were built along a streetcar network, and we have a legacy of those historic buildings today in many of our neighborhoods. And then lastly, what is TDM? This might be the newest one. I know we've introduced this concept a couple of times in the past. Transportation Demand Management, otherwise known as TDM, stands for a lot of things and covers a variety of topics. It's used in various cities to address transportation needs and to manage transportation demand on various aspects of the system. That includes highways, but also trains and other modes. And essentially what it is that it's a set of strategies aimed around influencing and creating more freedom in terms of how people choose to get around the city. So TDM guides the design of our transportation infrastructure so that we have other options available. And again, in our context, driving is a really accessible option if you have a car. And so we're focused on balancing how other modes are just as accessible and just as liberating in a sense too as driving. So simply put, it's a set of strategies aimed at maximizing traffic road choice. We want Clevelanders to be able to choose, to feel like that they have effective choice, a meaningful choice into whether they drive, take a bus, walk, bike, roll, whatever that mode may be. So again, some context here. Cleveland, 1920, we had a streetcar network. This was Cleveland nearly at its peak in terms of population. We had a variety. This graph here shows a distribution of census tracts based on their population per acre. There's a small dot in the corner there that shows the entire region's population. It was about 1.4 million at the time. And the map on the right shows a distribution of census tracts. Yellow census tracts that you see highlighted are tracts that are at least 30 housing units per acre in terms of the overall population. So we had, these are recognizable core areas of density, especially given Cleveland's history. Jumping forward to today, this is 2010. And so the plot line on the graph shows the region's population. The region has now basically topped out and we're basically stabilized at around 2.7 in terms of the total population. However, you can see based on the graph and the map adjacent to it that we've depopulated. Many of our census tracts today, all of our census tracts are below that threshold that is generally considered to be supportive of fixed guideway high frequency transit. I can say more about that in a second. And our census tracts, while the city has grown geographically, we've sort of reconfigured our city from a census tract perspective. We don't have any tract really that rises to that level today. So essentially, this is a representation of the sprawl we all know and have studied in various forms. And so again, TOD and TDM is one expression of this 15-minute city framework. We're a city, we're the planning commission, we have the ability to regulate, to recommend changes to the structures that control land use, development, and transportation in the city of Cleveland. And this is one way we can express that. So the goal here is to permit vibrant, dynamic neighborhoods where residents can meet those needs, again, within a 50-minute walk, bike ride, or transit trip. And so what does this look like? High frequency transit corridors, again, act as the TOD zone. So what is high frequency transit in our context? Right now, the fastest bus or train service we can expect if we're waiting for an RTA bus or train is a 15-minute headway. So that what that means is that you can expect a bus or a train to arrive every 15 minutes. And so mapping out those corridors within a 5-minute walk of those assets, you get what we're calling the TOD zone. So this is the city of Cleveland. These blue areas represent geographies in which you are within a 5-minute walk of high frequency transit. Again, this is a generalized geography. This is an average of people's walking ability and walking speeds. It also doesn't reflect the walking conditions, the environment that we face, the quality of the sidewalks, whether there's adequate tree canopy so it's shady in when it's hot out, or our sidewalks cleared effectively. These are all other factors that we are working on considering, but on a high level, this is the walkable area to transit. And so this map is in some ways an update to those previous maps I showed of the historic population, density, and trends. This is Cleveland roughly today, so this is using 2020 census data. It's a little difficult to see the detail, but essentially what I want you to focus on here is, again, that red outline showing that 5-minute walk to high frequency transit. Essentially, the blue dots are census blocks. So these are subdivisions of census tracts that are at or above that in that 20 to 30 range of housing units per acre. The point here is that we have these long, high frequency service corridors in our city where the density of land and the density of housing, the amount of people living proximate to these assets is very, very low. And that's a challenge. And there are structural reasons in part for this that we can help address. So just some facts on this specific area. It's roughly 40% of the city by population, almost half the city by population. It's actually 73% of the city's non-white and Latinx population is located within this blue zone, this TOD zone. It's 40% of the city by land. It's about 56% of the city's owned vacant lots, so that includes land bank land. 78% of all workplaces in the city are in this location. It's slightly higher for the workplaces of specifically Black employees. 23% of households within this geography also lack access to a vehicle. And that number rises to 70% if you include households that have either no car or one car available. The reason why we include that statistic is chances are there's a member of that household who has to rely on some other mode, walking, biking, transit, other than driving to get around. We added this slide too of transit use. So this gives you a sense of what transit use right now is like in the city of Cleveland. According to the Census American Community Survey, which is a survey the census does on a more regular basis than the actual census itself to determine all sorts of information, but specifically for our use case here, transportation choice and how people commute in the city. And so roughly 8% of employed residents in the city commute via public transit. The below graphs are also from the RTA's monthly ridership reports. So this is the ridership report from May 2023. And it is reflecting some of the trends that we all are, I'm sure, are aware of, that transit ridership fell significantly when the pandemic started. It's starting to recover, but this gives you a sense of where we see transit ridership recovering, but also which months of the year, which days of the week transit is most heavily utilized. One thing that jumped out to me looking at this too is some of the seasonality of the transit ridership numbers reflect student populations and how much they rely on transit in the city of Cleveland to get to school and get home. So what are we doing about this? What are our strategies? Related to the legislation that the director alluded to earlier, we want to swap out required off-street parking, mandatory off-street parking requirements for transportation demand management into TDMs. So we have proposed and developed a manifestation of TDM for the city of Cleveland. So this will apply to new construction, but again, TOD doesn't mean new. It also means many of the buildings we have today are transit oriented. how do we make them easier to occupy and to renovate? So again, it's easier to build new, but it's also easier to reuse old. The other part is actually establishing the TDM programs. It's simply not sufficient to just say no more parking requirements. What we want to do is also bake in encouragements and requirements to address that disparity with transportation via other methods. What comes next? Zoning map updates. This relates to the form-based code work that Shannon is leading. It's not enough to just tweak one aspect of the code. This is a comprehensive structural challenge that we are addressing in multiple ways. And so within those TOD zones, and you'll see in a second, we actually have to also change. We have to change more than just this broad rule, but this is a high level starting point that needs to be addressed. So again, often the areas around high frequency transit stops are zoned for low density uses. So we need to examine that in more detail. To give you an example of that exact point, this is a dashboard that one of my colleagues, Drew Sarabian, developed. He did a great job. It's a static image of it, but we do have one that's an interactive form that you can interact with. Essentially what this is showing is, this is a zoning analysis of, again, that TOD zone, the blue outlines of the map I showed you previously. This is reflecting that aspect of much of the zoning code within proximity to these high frequency transit stations only permits single or two-family zoning. So again, a high level breakdown of that, roughly 6% of the land within that 5-minute walk of high frequency transit doesn't permit more than 2 housing units to be built by right. So what does this mean if you want to build missing middle housing? If you want to add an ADU onto a duplex, you have to get a variance. There are over 17,000 vacant lots within that zone. And so this is where we need flexibility in order to address that opportunity. This comes up, I think, in a lot of plans that are done. The plan that was just presented referenced the opportunity that exists in vacant land within neighborhoods across the city. And this is a challenge that anyone seeking to address to do that faces. And we consider this condition to be a public emergency. It intersects concerns around public health, climate, our municipal finances, and in general, just human thriving, having assets and amenities and things to enjoy in your neighborhood. So why are we so focused on parking? It's fairly well established in contemporary planning practice that in many ways parking is a requirement of driving. This is a mode of transportation, and the land use consequence of that is that we need to allocate space either on the street or on private property in order to store these vehicles. It's a challenge in Cleveland because, again, roughly 25% of the households in our city do not have access to a car. Again, that's 70% of households within a 5-minute walk to high frequency transit have either 0 or 1 car. And roughly 1 in 5 Clevelanders are just too young to drive. That's the student population in our city. They simply can't drive. And in many ways, mandatory parking requirements are exclusionary. They're exclusionary from a physical perspective in that space you reserve for parking generally can't be used, or it's very difficult to use it for something else. They're exclusionary in the sense that we're allocating valuable real estate along many of our corridors to a mode of transit that many of our residents can access. We also have an opportunity here. Again, there are over 200,000 jobs located within a 5-minute walk of high frequency transit. This is downtown. These are health science campuses. They all have high frequency transit located within their vicinity. There are, again, more than 75% of people who work in the city work within a 5-minute walk of high frequency transit. They work within the TOD zone. And again, we have over 2,800 acres of vacant land that's within this geography. So again, what are we doing about it? This is in essentially transportation demand management. What we want to do is provide, instead of requiring parking, we require projects of a certain size and scale, depending upon the impact we expect them to have on our transportation network, to instead develop what's called a TDM plan. It's simply their proposal of options they're going to pick from a menu that we've currently drafted and are continuing to refine and modify, add, subtract items from it. To basically provide alternative ways in which projects can influence and advance, and again, provide options for their employees, their customers, their residents to access the various modes we have within our transportation system. So a project you might be familiar with, Stokes West. This was a project in University Circle that you reviewed. We approached them early on. They needed a zoning map change that, again, you all reviewed. And so, again, working with Shannon and the zoning staff, we approached the team and said, we're thinking about transportation demand management. You're asking us to rezone the property and you're not including the what is otherwise the code required amount of off-street parking. So would you take a look at this and see what options that you might want to include? Give us feedback on what's feasible and what's not. And so the bigger table here is one that shows those exact options that they picked. And so they agreed to subsidize transit passes for residents at a 40% rate. So they'll cover 40%, the residents are on the hook for the other 60. They agreed to do streetscape improvements that we're currently still working on some minor details of with various stakeholders. But they also agreed to provide long-term secure bicycle parking on site. They're providing bicycle amenities for repair and maintenance. And one thing that's interesting on there that they agreed to do as well is provide basically a bicycle fleet for tenants. So what that means is it's like a library. You can check out a bike that's owned and maintained by the building management and go on a ride around the neighborhood, go ride to the museum or whatever amenities you might find appealing. And it's pretty neat. And so essentially what we did is based on the draft TDM programs, they had to obtain 30 points. The menu options have points assigned to them. They come up with a strategy, the plan that fulfills those requirements. So these are the tiers as they are proposed right now. I'll just pause briefly here and go into a little more detail of what we're actually proposing in the legislation. What we've drafted for the city is basically enabling legislation that would allow the planning commission to decide what the program standards are for TDM, and that includes setting the thresholds for these tiers. This is a practice we've observed in other cities in our research in creating this program. Essentially what it means is that you set a threshold at which projects are required to achieve a certain number of points. Many cities do this based on just total square footage. We felt like looking at projects that have been done, again, mainly those larger residential corridor projects that we see, that it was important to have a threshold based on dwelling units. And so essentially what this means is that whatever aspect of your project crosses that threshold under project characteristics is placed in that tier. So even if you have 5,000 square feet of retail, but you're building more than 60 units, you're still a tier 2 project in that sense. And then we also are proposing differentiating between new construction and changes of use. Essentially, many of the small retail storefronts that characterize a lot of our historic neighborhoods, occupying those spaces doesn't have a huge impact on our transportation system. Oftentimes there are stores that are less than 5,000 square feet. They may have a handful of units above in that storefront, but they're still required to have essentially the same footprint of that building, if not larger, reserved for off-street parking. And so by allowing those projects to open without going through a comprehensive or an onerous variance process, we actually make it easier to use a transportation system by walking, biking, or taking transit by reactivating that space. That's the idea. So again, Stokes West, you're all familiar with this project. Just as a refresher, this is, oops, go back to the site plan. This sort of demonstrates it's a lot of units on a fairly sized parcel, but the parking lot is relatively small. Again, this is why we wanted to trial these TDM options for them, and happy that they agreed to include them. So what actually is in a TDM plan? Well, it's pretty much the same things we require now for our application projects. So many of the elements you're familiar with from design review. We want to have an application that just has basic information about the project. We want to understand, obviously, a site plan. This is something we request anyway. Some examples of how we might suggest augmenting that in order for us to evaluate under this program, and then supported justification, supported documentation, like justification for the measures that they're using. An example of this might be if we have a project come in that's on the towpath trail, having TDM options that reflect the proximity to that asset makes sense. If they're near a transit station, providing transit passes is a logical choice. And then also a plan for how they're going to monitor and report that. Another aspect of that is if you're agreeing to provide transit passes annually, show us the agreement that you've worked out with RTA to have that subscription in place in perpetuity. And then we've also worked out a registration process with the Division of Licenses and Assessments that would allow us to monitor and report on compliance with the program, but would also allow applicants to modify their plans in the future. Again, this is something we want, especially large-scale projects, to do on a consistent, regular basis. But that means that as the city changes around them, if a street is redone and we add a projected bike lane to that street, if a new trail project comes in or other buildings are built around them, applicants need to have the ability, from our perspective, to modify their plans. And so this annual registration allows us to ensure compliance, but it also allows applicants to modify their plan as things change around their site. So the proposal right now is that it would be an annual renewal for the first 3 years. And if applicants demonstrate that they are maintaining compliance, that they're actually coming in and applying for the license each year, the registration each year, that would switch over after the third year to requiring registration every 3 years. And so trying to balance that burden on applicants to actually apply and register. And again, smaller businesses, because they're usually below that threshold, don't have to submit a plan or obtain registration. So it balances the burden with the actual process and need of complying with the program. So again, demonstrative site plans. This is actually an old plan back from 2013 that showed what is now intro. And so we want to develop some example site plans that have these elements of calling out where those TDM measures actually are on a site plan. So we want to provide applicants with a clear demonstration of what we expect to be in a TDM plan or in their development application. I'll go to another example here that's a little easier to read. The actual text itself is less important. It's more so the form of site plans that we're looking at that we want to have as examples, as expectations of what we want to see. And so I included some slides here to try to demonstrate what is built now versus what becomes possible. I think I had a slide here, let's see. Somehow it's not in this presentation, unfortunately. I think this is skipping some slides. Bear with me a second.
Yeah, but they're looking at something.
Yeah. There we go. This is what I wanted to go to. So this is what we see built. I pulled two projects. We have a lot of projects that have happened in the last decade or so in the city of Cleveland, but I pulled two examples. The one on the left, this is St. Joseph Commons. This is over on West 25th. This is a permanent supportive housing project. And it's a fine building. It was built using the urban form overlay, so some of the modern overlay codes we have in the city. But you can just see that so much of that site in the back is a parking lot. The project on the right is a more recent project. This is Station 73 on West 73rd Street in Detroit Shoreway. So it's just, this is oriented with the east. East is actually at the top of this image, but it's right near the lake. And it's a great project. But you can see just from this aerial how much space on this site is simply off-street parking. And what we're proposing isn't, we're not requiring developers to build less parking, but they still propose the parking that they need and that they might want in order to program and lease their project, for example. But right now it's not an option. They have to do this per code. And so this is an example of a project in Germany. This is a project called Neckarbrunn in I can't remember the exact name of the town, I'm sorry about that, but it was a compelling site plan in the sense that while having a TDM isn't necessarily the silver bullet that's going to make projects like this viable in the city of Cleveland, I wanted to demonstrate the juxtaposition of a site plan where you have blocks ringed by buildings, but what alternatives can you have in that space that will? We hear often from residents and when projects are being proposed that they want more green space. They want spaces in these projects that can be places where neighbors and residents can gather. And that's a real challenge when we require, when it's not really allowed, it's not an allowed inclusion in site plans when so much space, just because of the physical math of fitting in these other requirements. And so by making this change, we start to make site plans like this actually feasible from a structural perspective, from a legal perspective. And so we have examples from other cities, like I mentioned, we looked at Buffalo, we looked at San Francisco, we looked at other cities that have TDM programs. Buffalo in 2017 passed their Unified Development Code, they call it the Green Code. One thing it did is eliminate parking requirements entirely citywide, and then they also adopted a similar TDM program to one we're proposing.
So they, just to clarify,
Sure.
it wasn't a carrot. This is a carrot. They basically made this a requirement.
Yes.
So right now, this is just a carrot to get less parking. Eventually, we may be able to get here. This is where you want to be.
Well, we propose it is a requirement.
Well, it it's a requirement if you want less parking. You're not requiring
Yes.
everyone to do that.
No, it's required even if you build any amount of parking. Compliance with the TDM program within that 5-minute walk of transit is a requirement no matter how much parking you propose to build.
But you're not required to meet the number, are you? You're just required to do the plan.
You're required to meet the point requirement that your project's assigned to, regardless of how much parking you build.
But
Yes,
then you get the parking minimum
the code just doesn't require you to build any parking anywhere
in the city.
within
Or
that
in the
5-minute
different
walk. We're just saying it's, you build and propose how much you think you need for your project. But what is required are those multimodal enhancements that are
So
mentioned.
today, this is really interesting. In the zones today, there are no parking minimums, but you have to do a transportation demand study.
If the legislation is approved by council, that is what will happen, yes.
Which,
like it.
to me, if you think about form-based code we just went through, it sort of works hand in hand,
Yes,
in my
exactly.
opinion.
You're exactly right.
So, but just to clarify, then the pilots were true pilots and then you gave them the reduction because it hadn't passed yet. Our pilots were true pilots. This doesn't have that kind of incentive. It was just a test, right?
Yeah, what was interesting about Stones West is that it was basically this exact thing
Right.
on a very micro scale because they had designed a project that already didn't meet the code minimum parking requirements.
Right.
And we had worked with them through the site-specific rezoning process to basically do this, but just for that property.
Yeah, got it. It was a
Right.
test.
And so they're not the only project we've talked to, by the way, but that was just, it felt like a relevant example because you all reviewed not just the design, but also the zoning ordinance for that.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I think this is my last slide. Oh yeah, outcomes in terms of what we're looking for. I'll just leave this up here for you all to peruse. I won't read it. But I just wanted to take one more minute to thank Shannon, the planning staff like Adam Davenport as well, who've also worked with us, people in the mayor's office like Callie and Austin Davis, who were really helpful. We've had incredible support from the law department, Stephanie Melnick and Mary Cornelli, license and assessments, the commissioner and Loranda Talton have been super helpful and super supportive of this. Everyone in building and housing that I've spoken to, incredibly helpful. We also have what we were calling a TOD working group that we're probably going to reposition now into a 15-minute city working group. Includes staff from all over the development cluster, as well as some external stakeholders like the county, the land conservancy. So they've all been incredibly helpful and we appreciate their work. So this has been a really collaborative process.
RTA and council.
RTA, yep, absolutely.
Will the legislation provide thoughts about what happens with compliance? So if I'm a developer, I get my points because I have bike share and stuff like that, and and like 5 years in, I don't maintain it. What happens? How does the city become involved?
Yeah, great question. So having that registration process through licenses and assessments allows the city to issue fines. And so we're also, again, I've had conversations with Tom Vandenberg, the chief building official, to make sure that this is part of also the certificate of occupancy. It's difficult to create an entirely ironclad compliance process through this because dealing with regulating property is a challenge. There are centuries of case law that make that difficult for a city to do. It really happens thread the needle. And so, but again, the idea is that by working with license and assessments, we can issue fines to the property owner that have to be paid in order for them to either change a use or that would have to be addressed for them to do anything in order for them to do other things with their property in the future if they want to.
Yeah, I think my follow-up question is just that I've seen the idea of like, especially in building and housing, that fines are not something that they will kind of pay attention to.
Sure.
Especially if you have out-of-state folks, like, what is the next step in terms of,
Compliance?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, working with license and assessments, if those fines reach a sufficient level, that creates the process by which the city could then take that property owner to court to get a judgment for that payment of those services in order for them to, and we can find them again consistently unless they are compliant with the plan. And so we're hoping, obviously we don't want these projects to go to court, of course, but those are the penalties in place that we can create in order to incentivize compliance with the program. But also the conversations we've been having with developers, with a focus group of them, but also on a one-on-one basis, has been that it's really expensive to build parking. It's anywhere from roughly $5,000 per space for a surface parking lot. That cost rises to $20,000 to $35,000 if it's an underground or structured parking space. And it makes it difficult for them to provide other amenities. If you're doing, again, I'm speaking specifically about those larger developments where they want to provide amenities that, again, like either the neighbors are asking them to include or that they want to include to attract residents in a competitive housing environment. They just simply can't do that. And so many of the things that we're including as TDM measures are also things that come up in design review, come up in community conversations that developers either want to do, that residents want to see them include, that they can't from a cost or from a space perspective. And
From
so-
a good, on this one, not normally with other things where we need to find them, the truth is we end up with the product or the projects that we want that create the demand, regardless if they don't comply.
Right.
Now, I don't want them not to comply, but
Right.
we end up not overbuilding parking, which
Yeah,
is really
correct.
the issue.
That's
So
right.
we create the demand. If they do it day one, they're not gonna put it in later because it's too expensive.
That's
So
We're not gonna
I,
live down there being-
yeah. So
Right.
it's almost, it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy down the line when we're all not here. We might have a city that has enough demand for more transit or more walkability, so.
And that's why it's not enough to simply just remove the word.
Yeah, you gotta do both.
I think it's also important that, to your compliance question, is this is something we battled with, especially with Stokes West, because that was council's.
Yeah.
How do you carry this on once they sell the property to the next property owner? And so, just to clarify, it's an annual registration that the property owner has to do for the TDM. And then after 3 consecutive years, I think there's like, basically, they don't necessarily become back within that year unless they change ownership.
Change the plan.
It's not any different than assessing parking lots,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Similar,
every
we
time.
use that same process.
Yeah, it's just
It's the
reversed,
same
right?
thing, it's the same thing, for higher lots.
Exactly,
It's the same.
exactly.
But rather than a license, we're calling it a registration.
Mhm.
Right.
Because a license seems like you have a license to do this and walk around and.
So a few more questions and then, if we're in the discussion, just so that we have time for the director's report and get done.
This is a selfish inquiry, because every time I
Electric
buy.
car.
No, it's an electric e-bike. No, seriously, as you go, I mean, we need to figure out how we accommodate, if I were to want to charge my bike.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to start thinking about infrastructure to support different modes of.
Sure.
That mode of transportation,
Right.
not just electric vehicles, so just the
That's
bike.
a great point.
You know.
That's a great point we can add. If it's not already on the TDM menu, we should add it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we have a draft of the comprehensive
That's a great
menu that we'll
idea.
share with you all. So another nuts and bolts point is we wrote into the legislation very intentionally that it would become effective within 6 months of adoption. It should allow us further time to get input from as many community members as we can in terms of the menu itself, the program standards. That's a lot of work, so we want to make sure that the legislation can pass before we engage in that process. But we baked in a window to try to build a more comprehensive menu and make sure the program standards are dialed in to as much as they possibly can.
So what's great is that there are other elements, not just specific to transportation, but even on-site daycare, which we all know is a source of transportation challenge for parents. Like that gets like a high number of parents.
Sure.
So Matt and Co have been thinking about a lot of different aspects, green space, other amenities that you could bake in. Like if you have it, like it'll put you at a higher point level, especially for those who have those transportation challenges. Like personally speaking, bringing a child to childcare is, and then getting to work is like the most complicated.
On your e-bike.
And you're like,
It's a challenge.
Well, but now it's like easier.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, because we are running out of time. Any other last comments? This is just for information only. We're gonna see you again.
That's right,
correct?
the legislation
So-
was introduced the 12th,
Yeah.
we come back.
Come
next
back.
meeting.
So, but any other comments or anything you want to come back with when we see this again?
Madam Chair, real quick, Matt, I would love, whether it's next time or offline, just to hear more about where in which public safety and the conversations around moving sort of 15-minute city.
Yeah.
What public safety stakeholders, both within the city of Cleveland as well as in the community at large, are being brought into this conversation. I mean, I'm all for obviously increasing our bike transit, multimodal modes of transportation, but just factoring in the data about what is happening in the city of Cleveland as relates to safety. I think it's important to have input of stakeholders who are working within that space, both within the city as well as in the community.
Absolutely. I can also, since I've given you the comprehensive overview of this specifically today, I can bring more information on other initiatives related to the 15-minute city that are underway across various parts of the city. Yeah, I can include that as well.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, ma'am.
But we do have a director's report, so,
So the very first item is actually that there was a lot of news, so planning was in the news this week. Mayor Viv and communications team sent out a press release about how the vision for the 15-minute city is becoming a reality through this introduced legislation, as well as the request for proposals that we released this week for the citywide mobility. And so the RFP responses are due Friday, August 25th, 2023, or this year, at 5 p.m. We are onboarding and identifying a senior active transportation planner who will be shepherding this particular planning process over the next 12 months or so. Next slide. Community engagement, there's a lot of opportunity this week coming up. First, there is a slew of activity for the North Coast Lakefront Master Plan. Beginning Tuesday, July 25th, we will have a panel discussion with the National American Planning Association, including Mayor Bibb, County Exec Chris Vermain, and then the planning directors of the city and the county, including myself, about planners and their role in setting things like vision for the lakefront. We'll also have a panel with the mayor himself and the designers of the lakefront on July 27th at 3 p.m. It will be live streamed and recorded by TV20. And that is when there will be a reveal of initial drafts and sketches of the lakefront amenities and land north of Mall C. We'll be at various Dave's markets throughout this whole weekend, engaging with residents about their thoughts about the lakefront as well. So we'll be all across the city, starting from this Friday through Sunday. I just passed out flyers for the Parks and Recreation Master Planning process as well. They're also on the screen in English and Spanish. Starting Wednesday, the 26th through the 29th, there will be a variety of opportunities to engage in person at recreation centers on what residents would like to see in the Parks and Recreation planning process. This is the very first master plan in the city's history. The only other document we could find is a document from the 50s about standards for recreation. And so this will really be a comprehensive plan and strategy for how to get the Parks and Recreation amenities that we really deserve in the city. Next slide. Some administrative updates. I had shared that we put out a request for qualifications for on-call professional planning services. That closed in July, and happy to report that we received 14 responses, which is fantastic. We have a small group that will be gathering within the planning department to review those based on the matrix provided in the RFQ, and we'll be conducting interviews and identifying firms.
What percentage of out of town versus local?
Percentage, I can't say, Matt, maybe China, maybe you remember, but there was quite a bit of national attention on this. So I would say maybe 30 to 40% local, the rest national.
I think that's right, and many of the national firms that can respond also have local subs.
Yes, they have local officers. One administrative update I'd like to share is at the end of this year, December 31st, 2023, the tax abatement policy will change. And as a part of the legislation, all projects that receive schematic applications in the planning department will be considered for tax abatement, if that makes sense.
Wait.
So you have to submit a schematic plan application before December 31st, 2023 in order to qualify.
Do you know how many you're gonna get?
Well,
Be careful with what you wish.
Schematically possible is going to emerge.
We're putting out messaging. We're putting out messaging with the requirements,
Even if it doesn't.
the true requirements. So do not like send in
A sketch.
a sketch.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a few.
It needs to be a real schematic site plan. And we are encouraging everybody, so please spread the news, to come in for pre-development consultation prior to Friday, September 1st. If you are planning to come to us before December 31st, 2023 for schematic site plan application, because We really want to provide that customer service up front, understand the site plan, and help walk through your zoning needs are, other things outside the schematic. Ultimately, this is the direction that we want to go in, is to have pre-development consultations so that there's less confusion down the road for development projects, both small and large. Sometimes the smallest ones are so please make an appointment with the planner through the Microsoft Workspace. Next slide. 2 more slides, almost there. New staff, we welcome David Bass as the Major Transportation Projects Coordinator. He will serve as a liaison between planning and capital projects for all major roadway projects in our capital plan, as well as any planning for major initiatives such as 55th Street and other areas that we want to be proactive about. So he's great. He already was engaged with Payne Avenue and the People Street Initiative, street supplies, the temporary pop-ups, and now he's actually going to be a part of the process moving it into construction, where we'll be integrating those elements into the design and engineering portion. So he will be carrying the torch from planning over to capital projects. Next slide. Final slide. Some celebration. Callie Mersman is pregnant and expecting her and her husband. So we did celebrate Callie Jr. a few weeks ago, and it was really, really great. Callie has been instrumental in bringing people across City Hall together for the purposes of transportation. And so we had multiple departments represented to celebrate her baby shower, and we're really excited for her. And hopefully she'll be in time for the paid parental leave policy again.
Yeah.
I would like to congratulate the weekend for an excellent, exciting grand opening and block party over the weekend. It's a true example of how developments and organizations in Swampy should be doing neighborhood development. So